年後のあなたを見つめてみたい Stay together その時きっとそばで微笑んでいたい幼い頃からそう今日までの so many days
Hello and welcome to Weekly Suit Gundam, the special bonus podcast brought to you by the folks at the Weekly Stuff Podcast. I am Sean Chapman.
And I'm Jonathan Lack.
And we are here to celebrate the second anniversary of Weekly Suit Gundam, because, Jonathan, it has been 2 years since I had you watch the first 2 episodes of Mobile Suit Gundam, and we sat down and recorded a podcast about it. And 2 years later, we've watched 1 billion Gundam episodes and 5 billion movies. I went and did all the math, and it rounds out to 5 billion total Gundam things we have done in 2 years, because, holy shit, we have done a lot of this podcast.
We have, and you're forgetting the part of the story about 2 years ago when, like 5 minutes before we started recording, I said, hey, what if we split the Gundam thing off from the main podcast just because it seems like this is going to be a lot to talk about, and Weekly Suit Gundam was born with about 10 seconds worth of thought.
Yes, and never thinking about the fact that this podcast was never particularly designed to be weekly in any form, and yet, because we have a weekly podcast, we just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, and I called it Weekly Suit Gundam because our main podcast is the Weekly Stuff Podcast, and I thought that would be funny, and here we are, 2 years later. I can't believe we've gotten this far. It's been quite a ride, and I think I speak for both of us when I say this is my favorite podcasting we've ever done.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was my podcast dream I secretly watched all of Gundam on my own in a year because I was unemployed and just out of college, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but Gundam's really good, so I'll watch all of that. And then it was really good. I was like, well, I want to do a podcast on it, but it is also 5 billion episodes of anime that Jonathan would have to watch for us to do podcasts on it. So I just slowly chiseled away at it until we had some free time, and then had you watch a little bit of Gundam. And then you took the bait stronger than I ever thought you would, and now we have probably about 1 year left of the podcast until we catch up. We've got about 10-ish shows, depending on how you group things together, left until we're current on Gundam. And we're getting frighteningly close, and it's kind of crazy.
It is. And, so you watched it all in 1 year. It's taking me longer because we're doing a podcast on it.
Yes.
But I would not have it any other way. This has forged, I think, for both of us, for you, an even deeper connection with Gundam. Mm-hmm. For me, a very deep initial connection with Gundam, because I will always, always, always have my memories of every episode of this entire franchise of Gundam, every movie, every piece of manga I read tied up with this podcast, talking to you, releasing episodes, hearing from listeners, all of that, and it makes it very special. There's no other franchise I quite have that with, obviously, because we have no other podcast this in-depth on one thing. So, man, it's been a blast. This last year, we didn't get to as much Gundam as we did in year one, because year one, I was like a fucking cocaine addict with this shit. And you were hopelessly trying to catch up with everything I was watching.
Yes, because also in that first year, the pandemic was not a thing for most of it. So yeah,
the pandemic, more time at home, but not as much time to watch Gundam, ironically.
Yes.
So, but man, this last year, what all did we watch this last year, Sean? I have the list in front of me because this is what we're going to be kind of working with today. Let me see if I can find it. We watched G Saviour.
Yep.
That was the first episode after our 1 year anniversary. We watched 0080 War in the Pocket, 0083 Stardust Memory, the 8th MS Team. We watched Mobile Suit Gundam SEED, Gundam SEED Destiny, the Zeta Gundam New Translation Trilogy, Mobile Suit Gundam 00 Season 1, 00 Season 2, 00 the Movie, Awakening of the Trailblazer, MS IGLOO 1, and MS IGLOO 2. That was all this year, and that is a really, really interesting set of shows that we are going to be doing a lot of rankings with today.
Yeah, so the overall objective of this episode is similar to what we did for the 1 year anniversary. Is doing some ranked lists. We'll do some lists specifically looking at this past year of Gundam stuff, because I want to make sure that, we can talk about the shows we've watched in the past year in depth and not be overshadowed too much by the original Tomino stuff. That is obviously, hey, Mobile Suit Gundam and Turn A Gundam are still the two best Gundams. I don't think that has changed. Spoilers for our list. But we will also then be, ultimately, the true objective is to, at the end of this episode, us presenting our own list of, we have watched now across these 2 years, 21 total Gundam series. I don't know because some of them are movies, some of them are OVAs, some of them are shows that then we just kind of put the movies in with the show, but 21 things that we're ranking. And then we will then together have to update our official list, ranking the Gundam of Gundams, to determine the true Gundam of Gundams of the official Weekly Suit Gundam podcast rankings. So that will be the ultimate goal, and we'll have some fun rankings along the way.
Absolutely. Before we get into all that, Sean, quickly want to remind everyone that the next episode of this podcast will be coming pretty soon, because Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway, or Hathaway's Flash as it's known in Japan, is coming to Netflix on July 1st. We did a quick news update episode last week where you can hear us talk about that, and we will be reviewing that as soon as it comes out. That'll be episode 33 of the podcast, so look for that on July 5th. And then we'll update you at the end of the show on all the plans after that, but just wanted to remind everyone of that. And before we get started with our rankings, Sean, I did put out a call a couple days ago to Weekly Suit Gundam listeners, asking them what their favorite Gundam show we've watched so far is, and which of our reviews that we've done on the show was their favorite. And any listener questions they had. So I've got a couple of comments here. I should have put out the call more precisely, because I forgot to say, and we're recording this on this day. So yes. Not everyone may have gotten their questions in yet, but we can keep this going if people have more stuff. But I have a page of them here. So I'll start with the shortest one, which was Meow Nyan on Twitter, which is a great username, Meow Nyan, who just wrote, Turn A #1. I like that. I like the Turn A love.
Yes, Turn A, it is. That might be my favorite episode that we did.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the ones that, I was so excited to get to. And I remember having a good time recording that and just, digging deep into that show, because that show has a lot to dig into.
I think it's the longest episode.
I'm pretty sure it is. It's also, I think it's the longest episode, and I think it's also the episode that after we recorded it, it was the episode that I most felt like, man, I still had a lot to say about that show.
Yep.
But we could not physically have kept on recording that podcast for any longer than we did.
No, not at all. Abo Duo on Twitter said, Turn A for both show and review. You guys did a great in-depth discussion of what I consider to be Tomino's ultimate masterpiece. Thank you, Abo Duo. I'm glad. I think I agree with Sean. That's one of my favorite reviews we've done. For year one, my favorite from that year. Maybe we'll talk about what our favorite episode from this year was, Sean. We'll maybe say that in a minute here. Jalakok on Twitter wrote, Victory and Char's Counterattack are my favorites in both show and review. I like those choices. Those are unique. Mm-hmm. But I've also listened to the Turn A review multiple times. Thank you. He also asked, have you read the fan-translated books that have been coming out recently? The first volumes of Hathaway's Flash and Victory are available. There's also a partial translation for Tomino's book about the creation of Turn A and how it helped him get over his depression. I did not know about these. That sounds cool. Sean, you don't need translations because you just read Japanese.
I that's on a back burner for me, is eventually I want to check out more of especially some of that production side of things, of some of those kinds of books, and also the novelizations would be cool, but that would be something that would be fun to get around to reading at some point.
Absolutely. I've heard those Victory novels are crazy, so I would like to see that. And I'm working on my Japanese language skills again for my doctorate, so hopefully I will be there too soon enough, and we can do more of that kind of stuff. One of the first manga I want to go back and read in Japanese is Crossbone Gundam, especially because we don't have an official version, and I want to get those books in from Japan. So, okay, Roberto Noriega on Twitter said, Gundam 00 is my favorite since the geopolitics in the first season had a true global war on terror era feeling. Celestial being shifting the trajectory in Sri Lanka being an example of such. This more realistic history was great. Plus, Sumeragi Lee Noriega is the best, last name and all. That's true. As for favorite review discussion, it was the one for Char's Counterattack, since I found it on YouTube after watching the movie itself. Since then, I listened to the corresponding podcast episode after I finish a Gundam series or movie. I just finished to Turn A, and I'm moving on to Gundam X. Well, thank you, Roberto. That's awesome to hear. That's kind of what we hope the podcast is used for. And it's cool to hear. Char's Counterattack, I do believe, is our most popular episode on YouTube. I would have to check, but I think that one has the most views/listens. Not surprising to me, because that movie is popular, and it's a very accessible, I think, starting point for the podcast. So that's a good one.
Yeah, because also, you can, if you wanted to listen to our Gundam SEED episode in full depth, you'd have to watch all of Gundam SEED. If you wanted to watch Char's Counterattack, that's a 2-hour movie that is easy to watch and just go listen to a podcast on.
Which you should. It's a good movie.
Yes.
I'm going to watch it again one of these days soon, because Hathaway is coming out. All right. Alex Moore wrote, Gundam 00 is his favorite too. In my opinion, it's the most complete Gundam experience. It does not feel like one Gundam show, but 3, and each part feels so different and satisfying to watch. Part of it is that Gundam 00 has what I refer to as the 3 flavors of Gundam. First, the very realistic boots-on-the-ground feeling like the OVAs, Season 1. Second, the traditional Gundam like Zeta or Seed in Season 2. And 3, the very sci-fi, new typey space magic like Unicorn in the movie. That's a good way of putting it. I think we talked around that, but I like kind of framing it that way, because it's very true. 00 is kind of like all of Gundam, all its flavors in one experience, which is crazy.
Yeah, and seeing it the transition points from one to the other is a thing that I think is particularly cool about that show.
And he says when it comes to his favorite discussion on our podcast, he's split between Gundam Unicorn and Turn A, because they're so in-depth, and it's just so interesting listening to them. Thank you. I think the Unicorn one is good, too. Although
the Unicorn one is one that always kind of sticks in my craw a little bit, because it's the only one we did out of order.
Yeah, I would.
I think the episode itself is good, but I'm annoyed that we hadn't fully sort of cemented exactly what the podcast was going to do. I think we did it when we did, because it was kind of the Universal Century timeline stuff. But it's just so slightly out of order that it's the only one we did like that.
Yeah, I agree, and it's one I think if we have time, I'd kind of like to revisit in production order, because I think that would be interesting. We'll see. If we revisit it
in production order, it would be right after Age would be, I think, when Unicorn Gundam is done.
Okay, so not in production order, but maybe when we're done with everything, that might be a good one to go back to. He also asked, is there any chance for a main Gundam antagonist ranking? And I told him I would keep that in our notes, maybe not for this year, but when we've done everything, I think that would be a fun list to do, even though number 1 and 2 are Char and Haman Karn in some order.
Yes. I do think it would be fun to just do, once we're caught up with Gundam, just do a stupid number of lists.
Yes.
Obviously not just in one episode, but I think it'd just be fun to, I think that is a good idea. If other people have ideas of good Gundam ranking type things they would like us to do, they should send that in at any time, because, that would be something I'd like to do once the podcast is done, is just look at all of everything we've watched and just make dumb lists about it, because that's
I agree.
The heart of what podcasts are.
Yeah, and the antagonist one, that's a genuinely good idea we should do.
Yes.
But I also want stupid ideas.
Yes.
Do you want us to rank the top 10 Haros? We can do it. We'll get there.
I already know what my number 1 is.
It's Victory Gundam Haro, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know what my number 2 is. Now I've thought even more.
Victory Gundam Haro is the only one who, commits genocide by firing a gun.
Yes.
So, all right. True Life Dude on Twitter wrote, Unicorn left such a big impression on me watching it back in high school, right after watching Zeta for the first time. The leap in production quality blew my mind, lol. The 00 podcasts were my favorite, though. Loved returning to that show and hearing your takes on it. Yeah, I think the 00 podcasts, I will say, definitely marked a turning point for the format of this podcast, because that show had such a natural, you're going to do season 1, 2, and then the movie. And I think we loved doing it that way. Slightly shorter but more focused episodes. And we're kind of breaking everything up like that at this point. Age, we're going to do that way. Iron-Blooded Orphan sort of does it for you again with season 1, 2, but yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, everything from this point is either basically split into seasons/story arcs, because Age isn't seasons, but it has a very clear split point around the middle, or everything else is only 24 to 26 episodes, like Build Fighters and G-Reco. So. Yep.
And finally, Jimmy Jonathan Lee wrote, would the era of Zeta, Double Zeta, Char's Counterattack be better if Sayla was able to have a bigger role? That's an interesting question. I love that era. There's not a ton you could do to improve it, But I would have liked more Sayla. I think that's...
Yeah. I mean, the only reason why she isn't is because the actress who plays Sayla was busy. It's just like with scheduling reasons. So yeah, like they definitely had ideas for things to do with her. Don't know what the specifics of that were. But yeah, it always feels like a weird spot that I don't know if you need like a lot of Sayla in any of those, but more than like the little cameos you get, especially considering that she is Char's sister, like it feels like...
And one of the major characters of the original, like one of the only major characters who never returns in a huge capacity, right?
Yeah, so yeah. It is one of those things it's odd, like it's totally understandable why she's not, like there's nothing you can do. I prefer them doing what they did to like recasting the role or something, because that would have felt like, for a character that is not needed for the story, it would have felt like mean or something to recast her, but
yeah, and I, her scenes at the end of Double Zeta are some of my favorite in Double Zeta. They're great scenes, and I feel like at least something with her in Char's counterattack would have been cool. But there you go. And then his other question is, why do parts of the fandom have a negative view toward the new type concept with words like it distracts from the real robot realism? I wonder why, because new types are cool. New types are cool. This has been a long ongoing discussion on this show, because some shows do it better than others. It's not like I don't get that reaction from some corners of the fandom, although I feel like that's a pretty fringe view overall.
Yeah, I mean, I've sympathized with it because I mean, certainly on first watch through, it was something that bugged me, and it wasn't like... New type stuff, I think, I've always liked, generally speaking, because Mobile Suit Gundam 1, the original show, First Gundam, does it so well. But the thing I always got annoyed with was like the Super Saiyan Gundam concept that you get at the end of Zeta. That rubbed me the wrong way on first viewing. On multiple viewings, it doesn't bother me, especially because it's just like, when you watch it in Zeta, it's the first time they ever do it. Fucking everything past that point has some kind of Super Saiyan Gundam something or other. It's Trans Am, it's literally Super Saiyan in G Gundam. But yeah, like I see where some people like really crave these kind of super grounded 08th MS team war in the pocket style that you get from the OVAs. But it is something where Gundam is not Gundam as a franchise if you don't have the new type stuff. All mecha anime needs to at some point deal with some weird idea about like consciousness transcending the human body. And like transhumanism, it's just like a thing. All of them do it. First Gundam does it. Eva fucking obviously does it. Like everything does it. Vodum's fucking does it. Macross kind of does it. You always need to have some sort of weird psychic, the mind transcending the body, because I do think it like ties very directly into the themes of like what it is to be embodied in things like that connect to mecha and those kinds of ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a big part of all of this, and Gundam does it best. And, I have always loved the new type stuff, and I will always take more new type stuff. I think it's great. But the great thing about Gundam is there is such a variety. If that's not your thing, well, hey, the 8th MS team has you fucking covered, right?
Yes.
And there are AU shows that do this very well without really broaching that. And then there are also shows like After War that do it in a kind of different lens and are fascinating in their own way, So it's a very durable concept to me, and I think there's a whole lot you can do with it. So I love it. I think it's cool. There's a reason why the biggest anime like journal in Japan is called New Type. So
exactly.
Yeah. All right. That's all the listener stuff we've got, Sean. So should we kick into our first ranking?
Yeah, so let's do an overview of like what rankings we're going to do, because it's slightly different than what we did last year. Because for the first anniversary, we did a bunch of lists, and some of them we're not going to readdress, at least not on this podcast. We might revisit them when we've done all of Gundam. But for the first anniversary, we did do a top 10 characters list, which we're not going to address that this time out. We did a top 5 soundtracks, which we're not going to touch this time out either, partially because when I looked at it, I was like, well, there are a lot of really great soundtracks in what we've watched, but none of them for me broke into that top 5. So I was like, well, let's wait and maybe we'll hit Gundam soundtracks once we have the rest of it in there also. So we won't be changing or adding anything to those lists, and we're not doing lists for those for specifically season 2 stuff. What we are doing is we are doing a top 10 Mobile Suits list that is going to cover specifically stuff from the shows we have watched for the second anniversary or the second year of the show. So only mobile suits that have appeared from everything we've watched from G Saviour, which I don't know about you, Jonathan, but G Saviour that was a memorable mobile suit. Definitely will be on my list somewhere. But from G Saviour all the way up to MS IGLOO 2. And then we will also, after we cover our list for year 2 content, we'll then talk about how does this change our old list from the first anniversary year. Then we'll move on to top 10 songs for second season stuff. So this is all stuff of either opening themes, ending themes, or insert songs. Basically any lyrical song that plays connected to a show. Top 10 songs specifically for year 2 stuff. And then we'll look at how do these fit into the top 20 we did for the first anniversary episode. And then after that, we'll get into the shows themselves and ranking those.
Yes. And, nothing was sacred for me, I will say. So, I also rearranged my original lists a little bit when I put new stuff in. So,
yeah. I didn't rearrange much. I think I moved a couple of things in my song list. I don't think I rearranged anything in my Gundam series rankings. I don't think that's not because I felt like I shouldn't. I think it's more because I have already seen all of this stuff once. So, unless something like my opinions on something really changed a lot on reviewing, it doesn't really budge my ranking. And the only things that I think either went really higher in my rankings are stuff that we did in year 2, and I didn't really feel like there's anything from year 1 that I felt like had changed my feelings on in a real way.
Yeah, well, the stuff from year 1 was very fresh for me at the time, and I've had more time to sit with it, so you'll see some changes there, but we'll get to that later. Should we start with mobile suits or songs?
Let's start with mobile suits, because I don't know about you, Jonathan, I found that list a lot easier. I mean, there were some hard cuts here and there, but the songs list was utterly brutal. Just probably the hardest thing I've had to do in terms of making lists on any podcast we've done, I think was dealing with the songs, specifically then trying to fit them into the existing top 20 list and realizing, well, that means that some of the stuff on that top 20 list has to get cut. And that's fucking just heartbreaking. So
it was brutal. I think at some point we should probably expand that to 25 or something. But yes, the songs list was the hardest one for this overall. Not that hard for me, though. I will say, my 10 songs for this year, I pretty much knew, and then there's 5 honorable mentions, but that was pretty clear, and then they fit into my overall list pretty well, which I rearranged a little bit. It was last year doing the top 20 that fucking broke me, but I had that foundation, so it was a little easier for me this year. But yeah, the mobile suits one was just fun. I literally opened a browser window and I went through a list on Gundam Wiki of all the Gundams we had, and I opened tabs on all the ones I knew I liked, and then I just started moving the tabs around. And I took some screenshots of them for myself so I can look at them while we're talking and I can have the visuals in front of me. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with the mobile suits list. That's never a not fun topic to do.
Yeah, it's funny because I did my list literally the exact same way, and I have had this separate web page open for a couple of weeks at this point that is just a page that has 30 tabs open. 10 of them are the ones I have whittled down for my mobile suits, because it's especially for mobile suits, you need to take a look at them. You have to have that image in front of you while you're weighing what gets cut and what sticks around. So yeah, do you want to start off with your list with your number 10 mobile suit? Again, this is only stuff from we've covered in our second year of the show.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to where G Saviour pops up in yours.
My number 10 was the RB79K Ball Type K from the 8th MS team. This is the ball that you get in episode 1 of 8th MS team in low-key one of the best action sequences in the franchise, where Shiro pilots the ball and saves the day, and it is cool and badass. And I did not have the ball on my list last year, or as an honorable mention, but the ball is easy to, I think you said this on the 1-year anniversary show. The ball as a mobile suit is easy to overlook because it is a dumb little circle with hands, but it is an omnipresent thing in Gundam. It is great, and the ball type K that Shiro pilots is the best ball in the series. It is the one that truly saves the day, and I felt like it deserved a spot on the top 10 for this year's mobile suits because it is part of one of the most memorable scenes, and it's not a super different ball. It's orange. It looks cool. But I thought it deserved a spot. That ball type K more than carries its weight.
Very nice. The ball does not appear on my list anywhere, but I appreciate that. That does remind me that I should address this now before people get to the end of my list and be like, how the fuck is this not on here? I did not personally consider the Goof custom from 08 MS Team for my list this year, mostly because I put the Goof as my number 1 last year, because the Goof custom is slightly different, but only slightly different from the Goof. It's mostly a different paint job and some different weapons. So when I made my list last year, I just kind of considered that as part of the general Goof family, and I felt like that would make it weird to put that. It would obviously be my number 1 if I considered it, but then it's like, well, I already did that last year. It would just take up slot for something new from this year. So I personally, I'm just kind of like said, that's a last year one, and it will continue to be my number 1 when we get to my updated mobile suit list, because the Goof custom is fucking sick as shit.
Well, I did not have that policy, so you can all guess what my number 1 is.
Yes. I mean, I remember we specifically had that conversation last year where you did not have the Goof as high because you didn't consider the Goof custom with how you did your list. So I guess I just wanted to put that out there.
We hadn't reviewed 8th MS Team yet. I was the one playing by the rules. Fuck you.
I mean, the Goof would be my number 1 mobile suit regardless, which is
I know.
I said
I'm just
then
kidding.
also. Yeah.
All right.
So,
what's your number 10?
My number 10 is the SVMS-01E, Graham's Union Flag Custom from 00 Gundam. So the flag is, to me, one of the few memorable grunt-type mobile suits outside of the original sort of Tomino cycle, when you had a lot of really good just random enemy mobile suits, and then the quality of the random enemy mobile suits goes down in the Gundam franchise, I think, pretty dramatically past that point. So much so that you basically then get to Gundam SEED where they're like, let's just basically do Zaku's again, and then they go, let's just literally do Zaku's again, because it's hard to make just here's a random grunt type mobile suit to have the heroes fight. And the flag, when you get to a 00 Gundam, I think takes that spot really handily. I specifically picked Graham's because it's black and it's cool, and because Graham is cool. But there's something so unique to me about the very kind of tall, spindly design. It's got echoes of almost like Turn A Gundam mobile suit designs in there. And it's just this very memorable, I think, compelling random mobile suit that feels so 00 Gundam. It's a little sleeker than a lot of the other kind of grunt suits from season 1 of 00 Gundam, and it's that kind of point where you can see them getting towards the kind of mobile suit technology that the Gundams in that show have, but the normal countries are not there yet. So they're at this kind of midpoint where it looks almost like a jet fighter, almost like a mobile suit. And then it's also just, it's used so effectively within the show, which obviously helps all mobile suits a lot, is if you have a cool character piloting it, you get some really good scenes. You get all the cool tall geese type stuff with the Union Flag custom, where it's moving so fast that it's killing the person inside of it, which is just always a cool thing for a mobile suit to do. So that is my number 10. Mad props to you, Mr. Graham Aker, Mr. Bushido himself, and your awesome, awesome mobile suit.
I am glad this is on your list. It did not quite make mine. It was in contention, and ultimately there was another mobile suit that Graham Aker pilots that I decided to put on, and so this one kind of fell off. But I do love the flag. I particularly love the variant he pilots in the final episode of Season 1. Mm-hmm. It's fucking great. I agree with everything you said. Great mobile suit. No doubt about it.
Very good. What's your number 9, Jonathan?
My number 9, and I have a couple on here that are sort of slashes, where it's technically 2 mobile suits, but they're so closely united it's not cheating, I don't think. And this is one of those. This is the MBF-02 Strike Rouge from Gundam SEED, and its updated variant, the A-Rouge Strike Rouge from Gundam SEED Destiny, which you almost never see in the show, but if you look at pictures in Gunpla, I think is in a slightly improved version. It's got sort of the backpack sort of thing on the back, like a lot of mobile suits have, that's red, and I think how it complements the colors is very nice. But it's the same basic suit across either of those. This is Kagali's mobile suit in Gundam SEED. I think it's a very nice surprise when you get to that part in Gundam SEED and you realize Kagali is going to get her own mobile suit. It fills out that trio with the with Othran and Kira's mobile suits, and it is cool. It is a pink Gundam. Mm-hmm. That sounds kind of stupid on its face. It feels like this is it's Gundam, but for her, like you would get in a toy store or something, and it kind of looks like that. But I love it. It is it is a very good pink. It's actually fairly close to how Char's mobile suit is colored in the original Gundam, if you look at it. But I really like it. It's pink with like this big red chest. Obviously, I think that with the yellow V on the top is like just a very nice color match. The design of the Gundam itself is not that different versus like the Freedom or something, but it's very nice. It's pink. It's cool. Kagali got her own mobile suit. I was very happy about that. And I think its updated version in SEED Destiny is even better, which is actually a theme on my list. Most of the suits from SEED I'm going to have on here are from Destiny, because while that show is worse, its mobile suit designs are better. So, yeah, but the Strike Rouge, a classic, simple, but very good.
Awesome, yeah. The Strike Rouge does not appear on mine. There's no specific Strike, I guess, well, I don't know how you count one of the ones, but like there's basically no Strike Gundam, or the couple of different variants they have on my list, but it was the Strike. If I was to have one, it would have been the Strike Rouge, and that was one of my cuts near the bottom. So
I like Gundams. Almost everything on my list is a Gundam in one way or another. And that's, to be fair, we had like SEED and 00 this year, which like most of the new mobile suits are Gundams.
Million Gundams, yes, yeah.
So there you go. But the first one on the list, Strike Rouge. What's your number 9?
Good. Well, my number 9 is also a Gundam, and it is from SEED Destiny. It is the ZGMF-X42S, the Destiny Gundam, the titular Gundam of Gundam SEED Destiny. This would probably, if it was purely based on just the design, it would probably be a little bit higher than here. But it's one of those things of where a mobile suit is judged for me both by how cool it is, and then also it needs to be, what's the eye candy you have from the show? And the Destiny Gundam, like, barely appears within the show itself. If it had a proper, like, full appearance like you would expect from the titular Gundam of a show, I think it would probably end up higher, because I think the design of this thing is sick. If you looked at remember my list from last year, have been listening to this podcast, you probably know that I really like Gundams that have wings on them. It's just, I think, a really good design that kind of fills out the classic Gundam design profile, and specifically if you want like a exaggerated, more heroic style Gundam look, I want something that has cool wings on it, and the Destiny Gundam fulfills that in this really powerful way when it has the wings on the back open up, and then it shoots out this big kind of pink energy that makes up its wings in a way kind of like the V2 Gundam from Victory Gundam. And other than that, it is just this kind of very sleek, strong Gundam design. I think the balance of colors is really good. It's got an overall Zeta type color palette where it is very kind of muted, even though it's mostly black, red, and blue. The reds and blues are very kind of muted, slightly darker tone palette, and the white is more of this kind of ashy gray white than a bright white, in a way that kind of is a similar color palette to what the Mark II has with a slightly brighter blue. And I think that it's just a really good overall kind of very sleek color palette for this Gundam. I also really like the sword knife things that it has on its shoulder pads that Sheen can take out and throw as these like weird throwing knives that also make his shoulder pads stick out in this very kind of winged type fashion as well. I think it's just a super solid Gundam design that, had it been used better in the show, it probably would even be higher, because I like my winged Gundams, but you just don't get quite enough eye candy in the show, I think, to fully appreciate how good that design was. But it is definitely a Gundam that I have in the back of my head as a Gunpla I'd like to build, because it's a very nice looking fucking Gundam.
I agree. I will say this one was never in serious contention for me, because when I was just looking through photos and stuff, I have no association with it. I don't remember it on the show. I tried to find screen caps of it on the show. It was very hard. I agree it's a good design, but like it's overshadowed by some other ones for me, and just didn't quite make it. I see what you're saying. But yeah, one of the many problems with SEED Destiny there is the SEED Destiny not used that well.
Yeah.
All right. My number 8 is the GN 002 Gundam Dynamis. Which is Lock-On Stratos' Gundam from Season 1 of Gundam 00. I was trying to choose between this and the one that other Lock-On Stratos has in Season 2. They're both very good. I think I like the Dynamis a little more because of its balance of green and white in its design. It's a little more slim and mobile. But either way, the idea of the sniper mobile suit is something we've seen several times, and it's always cool, but this is like the definitive version of it. It's so good. The moment in Season 1, the big fuck-off moment when he just shoots through the stratosphere to break up that space station that Setsuna F. Seiei is trying to save. It's very good. The Gundam Dynamis, always great. And when you have Lock-On behind the wheel with his fucking Haro in there, it's great. I love the Dynamis. It's one of the best Gundams.
Yeah, the Dynamis did not quite make my cut. That was, like, I think a hard part of my list was figuring out what to bring over from Double O Gundam, because there are so many really strong designs, and they iterate on those designs at least 3 times, because you get the Season 1, Season 2, and then the movie versions of the suits. But yeah, that's a strong pick. I think I would probably I might actually go with the movie version, because I like the shield bits so much, and they're more prominent.
That's really
in
good,
the movie
yeah.
version also. But yes, any of the 3 Cyber mobile suits from Double O Gundam is a very strong choice.
Yeah, and, it's impossible to separate this from its use in the show, right?
Uh-huh.
And if it's associated with Mr. Lock-On Stratos, it gets a boost in my eyes.
Very good. My number 8 is also from Double O Gundam, the GN-005 Gundam Virtue, which I have also combined with the secret Gundam it has inside of it, because it feels like, since it's a Gundam inside the Gundam, it's part of that ranking 2 for me, which is the GN-004 Gundam Nautilus. I had a hard time picking between this and his Season 2 suit, because the Season 2 suit has a giant Gundam face on the back that turns into another Gundam, the Seraphim Gundam, which is also a very good idea. But I couldn't possibly justify having both of them on the list, and at the end of the day, to me, the scene in Season 1 where the Nautilus is unleashed has just so much strong visual impact, and the Nautilus itself is such a striking, unique mobile suit design that, for me, the Virtue Nautilus combo comes out on top as far as Tiria's mobile suits are concerned. I've always liked the Virtues and all of his mobile suits, like, big, chunky appearance, and they have these big cannons. And so it's got this is kind of like meaty, heavy quality to it that is very similar to another mobile suit from a different show that'll come up soon on my list. But I like your kind of like the stocky brawler type Gundams a lot, but then having it then split apart and come apart to reveal the Nautilus inside, which is this very stripped down, very reduced, pure white Gundam that then has the red cables that look like hair. It is that one of the places where Double O Gundam early on, while it is still in its very grounded phase, hints at the more exaggerated aesthetic style and sort of narrative style that is going to move towards in the future. And that sequence where all the armor comes out and Nautilus is revealed underneath, I think is like a top 10 moment from the shows we've watched in Season 2. If we had done like a top 10 moments type list, that is definitely really high up there. And a lot of it is because these Gundams look so sick.
You are correct. It is great. I won't say more because it's higher on my list. I was also considering Tiria's Season 2 suit. I also felt I could not justify doing both of them on one list, but his Season 2 suit, especially because it's got fucking another Gundam head on the back, is fantastic.
Yes, it is.
My number 7 is the ZGMF X20A Strike Freedom Gundam from Gundam SEED Destiny. I really like this one. It is Kira's suit from Gundam SEED Destiny, his upgraded one. I really love the balance of black within this suit, where you have the traditional Gundam colors. It's white, it's red, it's blue, but the chest piece and then parts of the wings are black. And the way that combines specifically with the red tones they do, I think is one of the coolest combinations of Gundam colors. It's kind of like if you put the original Gundam and the Mark II together and then added like double Zeta wings and stuff like that onto it. Mm-hmm. It's really, really good. I love the giant wing pack on the back. In general, I'm not that hot on the Gundam SEED Gundams all that much. Like, they're not bad by any means. They're just not the most creative Gundams the way I think some of the 00 ones are. But this one really stands out. I think it's one of the best of just the kind of traditional hero Gundams, even if it is piloted in that show by someone I find completely and utterly insufferable, who is definitely committing war crimes. The Strike Freedom Gundam, I won't hold that against it. This is one I would love to build a Gunpla of.
Yes, I won't talk too much about it yet because it might appear somewhere else on my list, but it is a very good Gundam. All
right, your number 7.
My number 7 is the RX-78 GPO-1-FB Gundam, the Zephyranthes full Bernier version. This is Ko's Gundam from 0083 Stardust Memory, specifically the one that gets modified so he can use it in space, because that's where I think the Zephyranthes gets like its full. It feels like it's designed to have these big, two chunky pods. Again, I just love my wing looking kind of Gundam stuff. These aren't like super wingy, but you have these two big pods sticking out the back. on his shoulders. And this is just a really, I think, solid kind of traditional style Gundam design that I think is also helped a lot by the fact that it's from an OVA. So it just gets, you've got a lot of very luscious eye candy, both for this version and then the original version before it goes to space. It is a really, I think, striking design. I love the shoulder pads that extend out a lot more and a lot sleeker. It's a sort of a slightly thinner Gundam that is then, juxtaposed with another Gundam for that show that might be on my list somewhere else. But yeah, I don't know if there's like a huge amount to say about this other than it's just a really strong Gundam design. I like that you can see a lot of the you can see them building towards a Zeta-esque design, particularly the legs of it are particularly Zeta-esque, like specifically the Zeta Gundam. And so I think there was a lot of thought in designing it, thinking about where the show is set within the Universal Century and where the sort of trends in mobile suit design are heading. And I think that this is one of those, as a lot of the OVAs have, this interesting sort of glimpse at some kind of middle point or other evolutionary stage of the Gundam that you don't see in the traditional shows where there are much bigger time jumps. But yeah, it's just, Stardust Memory, I have sort of very mixed feelings on overall as a show, but one thing that show has incredibly well is it does its mobile suits. The designs are great, and then they are used beautifully in that OVA. So hats off to you, the Zephyranthes.
Yes, absolutely. It's a good one. It's not on mine. Nothing from 0083 is on my mobile suit list. I did consider Annabelle Gatto's Gundam. I really like that one. Ultimately didn't break through for me, but everything you said, I agree with. It's a good one.
Very good.
My number 6, continuing on a theme, is the ZGMF X09A, the Justice Gundam from Gundam SEED, which is Othran Zala's big upgraded, cool Gundam. I love all of Othran's mobile suits because they are red, and red is cool. This is something established in episode 1 of Gundam. Red mobile suits are cool. Othran's, I think, is they're always great. I love that his are a little more angular than your typical Gundams in a lot of their design. I love the black chest piece. I love all the red around it. This one, of course, has the big wing, like almost jetpack on the back, which has like strips of white. It's very good. I could have picked really any of Othran's. This is the one that ultimately spoke to me the most, and I would love to have a Gunpla of. It's got the beam sabers on the back. It's a very, very good one. All of his mobile suits are great. Again, because they are red. I specifically love the kind of shade of crimson they do on SEED. SEED's animation is fairly limited, as we've talked about, but I think it does very good color work, and this is one place where it does that.
Yeah, none of Othran's Gundams quite made the cut for me, but part of that is, the one thing I always think about is, I know what's going to be on Jonathan's list, because I know that Jonathan likes the red mobile suits, so it's like, I don't feel the pressure to be like, I have to find a spot for an Othran mobile suit, because they are cool Gundams. I particularly do want to shout out for Othran's Gundams, is that he gets the fucking Darth Maul beam sabers, because it was like 2002 when that show came out.
Yes.
And they're like, we got to get Darth Maul beam sabers, and that is also very cool.
Excellent. What's your number 6?
All right, my number 6, carrying on a theme from my list, is the RX-78 GPO-2A, the Gundam Visalis, which is Gatto's mobile suit that he steals at the beginning of 0083 Stardust Memory. This is kind of like Thierry's mobile suits from 00 Gundam. This is your chonky boy. This is the big Gundam. This Gundam's going to fuck your day up, and it is so good because it is the Gundam that is designed specifically to launch fucking nuclear weapons, and they just said, hey, let's make the gnarliest looking Gundam. So it's got these big legs, these huge legs that I think are designed to hook into and sink into the ground so that it can launch the nuke with enough force without blasting the Gundam away. And then it has, I think its most distinctive features are its 2 massive shoulder pads with rockets on the side in order to lift up the huge heft of this massive Gundam. It's got a very interesting head design that is very different from a traditional Gundam head, which is one of the things that is usually most unchanged. It has a huge V, and then this kind of almost crown type look on top of it, because Gatto is the king, so he gets the mobile suit that has a fucking crown on it. It's such a strong, I think, Gundam design because you see so much of the Gundam fundamentals while still having one of the more eccentric overall Gundam designs. And I think it finds that balance in a way that a lot of other shows, like a lot of ones we saw in Season 2, like Double O Gundam and Gundam Seed go for a lot of more eccentric Gundam designs, and a lot of them are really good. But I think the balance here for something that looks Gundam and yet is not Gundam is among my favorite of all the mobile suits in the entire franchise. So I think the Gundam Visalis is just a really, really strong mobile suit design that, again, I think is bolstered a lot also by particularly those first couple of episodes. There's just some incredibly beautiful animation involving this Gundam, and like going through the fog and all that kind of stuff. It's just good shit piloted by a good man who got done very dirty. The Gundam Visalis is very cool.
Yeah, I'm taking another look at it here, and I kind of wish it was on mine. I understand why I left it off, in part because, there's another mobile suit coming up that kind of filled the chonky boy for me. Mm-hmm. But I think what sets the Visalis apart is that fucking shield it has is so good. It's so big. The scene, and it's one of my favorites in 0083, where he fires the nuke down into the fleet, is such a good scene, and the animation on that, it is. Now I'm kind of regretting I didn't put it on there. Maybe I would replace like the Strike Rouge with that if I were thinking about this again. I don't think it would make it into my overall top 10 that we're going to talk about later, but for this list I might have included it. It's very good. There's, something's going to fall through the cracks. There's a lot of these.
Yes.
But I do not regret having my number 5 on here. My number 5 is another kind of combination. It is the TMF A802 Boo-Q and TMF A803 Lagao from Gundam SEED and Gundam SEED Destiny, also known as the Gundam Dogs, because these are the ones that you've got, what's the name of the character? Andrew Waltfeld.
Yes.
When we meet him, he's piloting, his is blue in Season 1, or in SEED, and then in Season 2 you get another one that is orange. They are otherwise pretty much identical. It's just the color job is a little different. But they are basically your Gundam Desert Dogs. They look like Pokemon or Digimon. They really look like Digimon, I would say. And they are very cool. I love them. I would like a Gundam dog. I like dogs. They made a dog into a Gundam. It's great. It's awesome. I love it. This is like a very animal brain one for me, where I don't know if I have that much to say about it, other than, it's also involved in some really good episodes of Gundam SEED in the middle there, and I like the initial Andrew Waltfeld arc, and I love seeing this one in the desert, and that's some of the better mobile suit action the original SEED does, is Kira having to deal with, like, piloting the mobile suit in the sand, and then you've got this one that is built for the sand. I always like Gundams or mobile suits that are built for like an actual purpose like this, so it's a cool one, and I think I prefer the original because it's blue, and I really like that shade of blue, but the orange one is pretty fucking cool too. The orange one is where you really start looking like a Pokemon or a Digimon.
Yeah, I like the dog ones. They definitely didn't make my list. I think part of my problem with them is I just cannot look at them and not see Metal Garurumon from Digimon.
Yes.
Like, it's just, and part of that is like I watched so much Digimon as a kid, and Metal Garurumon and War Greymon were like the two coolest Digimon. So I've spent a lot of my life as a young child looking at Metal Garurumon and being like, that's really cool. And then when it's a Gundam, like, it's that uncanny valley thing of like, it looks like Metal Garurumon, but it's not quite, and it bugs me.
I think you're explaining the exact reason why it's on my list.
Yes, exactly. And because you came to Metal Garurumon as an adult, so I don't think you have like the
No.
That's my lizard brain thing says like there's something wrong here because it's not quite Metal Garurumon. For you, it's like it looks like Metal Garurumon, and Metal Garurumon is sick as hell. So
yeah,
yeah, very good.
All right, what's your number 5?
All right, my number 5 is, I don't think I realized that I had made this whole train of Stardust Memory mobile suits, but I did it up like that in my ranking, is my number 5 is the AGX-04 Gerbera Tetra. This is the mobile suit that Seema, the lady who's way into, I don't remember if she's into Gato. I can never remember what happens in the second half of that show. She's the sick-ass Zaku, or Zeon lady in that show. And she pilots the Gerbera Tetra, a mobile suit I've liked for a long time, and it is just a really, really strong Xeon-style mobile suit design. It is, for you, Jonathan, it is red. It's a very nice shade of red. It's got the whole mono eye design. It has almost elements of a like kind of Victory Gundam suit, where it is almost insectoid in ways, but less like exaggerated, like the Victory Gundam suits did. And yeah, like it's just... has this very sleek, and kind of like what I said about the Gundams for that show. It has this very sleek, nice thought about what is the like midpoint between a Zaku and the kind of mobile suits that we see, not really like Neo Zeon use, but that we see the Titans kind of develop that are in the Zeon style, like the Hyzak and stuff like that. And it's, again, this is one where you just have some scenes with animation in the last couple of episodes of that show with the Gerber Tetra that are so gorgeous. And it's a mobile suit I've always wanted to have a gunpla of, because I think it's I just think it's a really, really, really strong Zeon style mobile suit design.
Man, I'm looking at the Gunpla right now, and I have to say, if it were that shade of red in the show, it would maybe be on my list. It's a slightly lighter red in the show, and it's I do like this suit a lot. It's very good. I think my tastes tend to trend away from the sort of insectoid ones. I like them, but I don't love them the way you do. Like the Cubily has not been as favorite for me as it is for you, I know. But it is a very good one. It's obviously exquisitely animated on the show. And yeah, good God, the Gunpla of this is fucking sick. Wow.
Yes.
I kind of want that one too now. All right. So that was your number 5.
Yes.
So my number 4 is the... Oh, I lost my list for a second there. There it is. It's the GNX U02X Masurao. And we'll also just throw in the GNXY 901TW Susanoo in there as well, because they're basically a slight palette swap. I do prefer the Masurao because, you guessed it, the highlights are red.
Yes.
But this is the Gundam that looks like samurai armor because Mr. Bushido pilots it. And assumedly, somewhere between seasons 1 and 2 of Gundam 00, he went to an engineer and took out a book of like ancient Japanese wall scrolls and said, here, make me this. And they had to do that. And if they do ever make a Gundam 00 movie, that's what I want it to be about, is Graham Aker demanding a fucking samurai armor Gundam, because it is so freaking cool. It's got those big, like, sort of horn things on the helmet. I love the sort of red pieces all around it. It's very thin and angular. It is clearly evolved from the flag overall design type. And then its final form, which is in his final fight with Setsuna, you have sort of those highlights turn white. And it is still very striking. I do prefer the red. You know me. But they are both very good. It is silly as fuck, and I love it. It's so cool.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, so I think we kind of went opposite directions, where I was split on Graham's mobile suits and ultimately just went down with the classic flag design. You went down with the samurai design. And it was kind of because the flag is on my list, I was like, if I can't really justify having both of them because they're designed so similarly, because it is basically the Masurao is just a samurai flag, which is very cool. But yes.
Yeah, it is a samurai flag. That's why it's on my list.
Yes, I'm glad that we can have both sides of it represented on the show with our two lists.
Absolutely.
Right. So
all right, your number 4.
My number 4 is the GN-0000 00 Gundam, plus, when it is combined with, which it almost always is in the show, the GNR-010 00 Riser. So this is the full package of the 00 Gundam featured in Season 2 of 00 Gundam, that has the big wing-like thing that is huge shoulder pads with like guns and swords on it that docks with the 00 Gundam that Saji pilots. And this is just... You could not ask for a better looking fucking Gundam to like be the lead Gundam of 00. It has a lot of the kind of Exia Gundam sort of design hallmarks in the design. It's very heavy on the blue, and I really love the shade of blue. You know, this is where once you're at 00 Gundam, they've like sort of solved a lot of the digital animation problems, so you get a lot of just really great animation with this thing in that last half of Season 2 of 00 Gundam. I love the way that it is able to fight in the show, and I think the way the 00 Riser pack on the back that gives it that mobility, and it has all these options with being able to make giant fucking beam sabers or shooting in like weird directions using that pack is really cool. This is also the mobile suit that Setsuna is piloting when he is able to quantize, and so this is the mobile suit that is able to sort of like break down into quantum pieces and then teleport through other mobile suits, which those scenes are so awesome. And it's like the concept of the mobile suit I also love so much in that show, where it's basically this thing of where you have the GN drives, which are your really powerful, like almost near magically powerful like sort of reactors that fuel these mobile suits, the Gundams. And this is the Gundam that's so powerful it needs 2 fucking GN drives for it to work. So you stick 2 of those fucking things on its shoulders. Like I just think this mobile suit, it looks so good, is used so exquisitely in the show. The way it looks with all the particle work they kind of do with the GN particles when it's emitting all that stuff. Just a think a classically great lead mobile suit design for a show.
I agree. It is great, but in my heart of hearts, I prefer my number 3, which is the GN001 Gundam Exia. I think the Exia is one of my absolute favorite Gundam designs. I love how thin and sort of small and compact, but then fast and mobile it is. How much it kind of reflects Setsuna's own body. I love what he is able to do with that thing with like the knives and the stuff he has with that. The Exia in motion, in animation, is one of my favorite Gundams. And in fact, when we get to my top 10 of all the mobile suits, I basically just straight up swapped it with the F91. I prefer it to that. But the reason it rises to my number 3 is because of the variant, the GN001RE Gundam Exia Repair, where it is missing an arm and just has a cape and is fucked up and gnarly and kind of looks like a crossbone Gundam. It is in one half of one episode, but it puts the Gundam Exia over the top for me into the number 3 spot. God, I love this thing.
It's very interesting, Jonathan, because my number 3 is the GN-001RE, the Gundam Exia Repair.
There you go.
Specifically, I love the Gundam Exia. I like the 00 Gundam 00 Riser combo more than the classic Exia. Although the Gundam Exia is like if these two weren't there, if I didn't have specifically the Exia Repair and I didn't have the 00 Gundam, like the Exia would be in my top 10, but the 00 kind of takes its traditional spot. And then when I was looking at it, I was like, well, is there just a thing for that fucked up Exia that is in one half of an episode? And I looked it up and it's like, turns out there is. It has a specific name and everything. So it is, for me, I was like, well, once I saw that, it's an official, distinct, separate mobile suit, the GN-001RE Gundam Exia Repair. And oh my god, while it is in only one half of an episode, it just makes such a strong impression. It has a fucking red Terminator eye, which is super cool. Its sword is cut in half because it's been used for like 5 years in combat with Setsuna without getting repaired. So all of his weaponry's fucked up. Like some of the plating on one of his legs is gone. But like the piece de resistance is the missing arm that is replaced with a flowing cloak basically over where the arm would go. It is so cool. It is like the definition of a cool looking mobile suit is what the Exia Repair is. And yeah, so that is why it is my number 3 and also your number 3 because it's really fucking good.
It's great, and I think it's kosher for me to kind of combine the Exias here.
Yes.
But yes, on my list I actually do have it written out as the Repair because gun to my head, that's actually not that very hard. The Repair is even better. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see. My number 2 then is the GN005 Gundam Virtue, and its counterpart, the GN004 Gundam Nodle. You already talked about it. The Virtue on its own, even before you get to the Nodle, would have been pretty high on this top 10, because it is a big, chonky boy with giant legs and those big black shoulder pads that, you can't call them shoulder pads, they're giant, like, rocket packs. And I think it is very cool. It's such a cool counterpoint to Tieria as a character, I think, early on, because he is small and quiet and reserved, and then he has this just giant tank of a mobile suit. But then you do get that episode where it turns into the slim, all-white Nodle with red hair cables that look like dreadlocks, kind of. And it is the coolest thing in the world. This was an easy number 2 for me. This was, when I went to do this list, Sean, I wrote number 1, and y'all know what my number 1 is. And then I wrote number 2, and I said, yep, it's this. And then I went and looked for everything else. This was very obvious to me. I love this one so much, both sides of it. It is perfect. It is wonderful. It is amazing. And Tieria is a great character too, so you got that added benefit of him being in the mobile suit. Love it.
Very good. Well, then moving on to my number 2, this is a mobile suit I've loved for a very long time, is the MS-18E Kempfer, a mobile suit that the Zeon Forces pilot in Mobile Suit Gundam 0080 wore in the pocket. The Kempfer is so fucking cool. It's very similar in some design elements to the Gerbera Tetra. It's very much that like you're kind of building towards the sleeker, more rounded design of the Xeon style mobile suits or the Grunt mobile suits in Zeta. But this is, if you took all of those together, the Kempfer is to me like the best of that design philosophy you have in Universal Century that you see in a lot of the Grunt mobile suits in Zeta and Double Zeta. It is mostly blue with yellow highlights. That gives it almost a Gundam-esque appearance in places. It also has a very similar thing that the Gundam Mark II has and the new Gundam also has, where it has these big leg vents on the side that are also highlighted with yellow highlights that I think really breaks up the color palette in a way that is incredibly striking. This is also a one that is benefited a lot by being from an OVA where you get some just gorgeous animation at the beginning and middle of War in the Pocket with this thing. It is also the mobile suit that has a giant unicorn horn, probably inspired in fiction by Char's Zaku 2, that he puts that fucking weird horn on the top of it. And so this is a huge one. And then this mobile suit is rounded out by being the mobile suit that also is standardly equipped with 2 fucking shotguns. So it just zooms around super fast and gets up close and shoots you with these shotguns because it's like a close quarters style design special operations Xeon style mobile suit. This mobile suit is also near and dear to my heart because for like the first half of Gundam Breaker 3, when I played that game a lot, 5 or 6 years ago, this was one of the ones where I made a kind of custom version of the Kempfer in that and used it for a long time and just like loved this overall design. And I think it is among the best of the kind of Xeon style mobile suits I think there is. I just think it's got such a strong combination of those little almost Gundam-esque elements to make it feel sort of special while having the kind of groundedness and sort of hard military feel that you'd expect from a Xeon-style mobile suit. The Kempfer is fucking cool.
I am ashamed to say,
yeah,
I forgot about this one.
You're a bad boy.
I'm very bad. This is bad. I kind of overlooked 0080 because while I love it as a show, I kind of forgot that it has a significant original mobile suit because the main ones you have are not that notable, right? They're kind of ones
you have
we've
the
already
Alex
seen.
Gundam, and then you have like Bernie's Zaku, which is a Zaku.
Right. So I kind of overlooked this one. I love this one. I agree with everything you said. I'm slightly revising my top 10, and I'll share that with you in a minute, everyone, but we'll get to that in a second. For now, let me share my number 1, which is obviously the MS-07B3 Goof Custom from 8th MS Team. It's the best mobile suit ever in the best mobile suit action sequence ever made, which is in that episode of 8th MS Team. Specifically, the reason I know it is very minor, the difference between the Goof in Gundam and the Goof Custom in 8th MS Team. I think it is down to the specific animation style in 8th MS Team and the shade of blue they give it just being just ever so slightly different is what unlocks it for me. And the Goof already was like my number 2 last year. The Goof Custom replaces it and then moves it to number 1. I feel like we spent a good half hour on this in the 8th MS Team episode just talking about this mobile suit, so I don't need to harp on about it, but it is legendarily fucking great, and I love it to death. All the weapons it has, especially, just add so much to it. It's so good.
Yeah, the Goof is already like a perfect design, and yeah, really what the Goof Custom is it's a slightly different color palette that I honestly feel like the color palette is more just informed by like the jump in animation quality and what they can like accomplish more than like a very specific design change, but it is a better because it's differentiated where you have the lighter blue on the head and the limbs and the darker blue of the traditional Goof design in the body. But then it also has, I think the thing that really pushes it over the edge is the giant shield that has a fucking Gatling gun attached to it and the grappling hook. Like those two combinations, then that's the thing that makes it not just a Goof, but the Goof Custom that's like a special forces badass Goof. Yeah, it's the best mobile suit. It's the best mecha in anything. It's the fucking Goof. Get fucked.
So good. So it's the Goof. Get fucked. That's what it says on the box for the Gunpla, right? You have it.
Yeah. Yep. That was I think the second Gunpla I made. The first one was my original Gundam, which I was like, well, the first Gunpla you make feels to me it either has to be a Zaku or a Gundam. You have to pick one or the other. You have to make either the Zaku 2 or the original Gundam. But this we have to finish off with my number 1. Getting back to, I think, my most traditional love of mobile suit stuff with winged mobile suits, it's the ZGMF-X20A, the Strike Freedom Gundam. Oh my god, this thing. Like, this is definitely... I need to manage to build a space in my new place I'm living in Texas to be able to do Gunpla stuff so I can finish off my Turn A Gundam that I never got to finish because, boy, last year was fucking crazy. And then once I finish my Turn A Gundam Gunpla, this would be probably the next thing I'd move on to because I fucking love the Strike Freedom so much. The Freedom Gundam itself is already a really good design. And all the basic principles of the design are already there. The Strike Freedom is mostly a color palette change, but it's a color palette change for the better because it adds sort of red and gold highlights around different areas of the mobile suit and kind of breaks up the coloring a little bit. But it is just, I think, an all-time great Gundam design. The wing pack on the back is gorgeous, and like in motion, it's so cool. The Freedom / Strike Freedom, like specifically the Freedom Gundam, is the one that is used best within its show, I think. But that moment in the first show where the Freedom Gundam comes zooming down and sort of in its first major appearance, and the song Meteor is playing, and he stops the battle. He does his fucking Panzer Dragoon thing where he locks onto everything, and it all like a million guns come out of it, and it has the two huge rifles that he slings at the sides that I think really complement the Gundam's design and destroys all the weapons. Like, some of those sequences with the Freedom Gundam are so powerful and I think so effective because of how they've been narratively staged, but it's also, this Gundam is so designed to feel like angelic in its design. It is very much similar in many ways to the Wing Zero Gundam, specifically the Endless Waltz version, that is meant to convey this sort of almost otherworldly power. And I think within the narrative of Gundam Seed is one of the things that makes that show totally like click together. Obviously, that's the original Freedom design. I think like the Strike Freedom as an aesthetic point of view is like slightly improved, but it's kind of the full package with the overall design philosophy of what those suits are meant to communicate. And yeah, it's just one of the best looking Gundams, the Strike Freedom. I want to build one.
Absolutely. Very good stuff. All right, should we recap our lists here?
Yes, so let's recap our Season 2 list.
And you will hear my changes.
Okay, yes.
My number 10 is now the RX-78 GPO-2A Gundam Physalis.
That's a very good choice. My number 10 is the SVMS-01E Graham Union's Custom, or Graham's Union Flag Custom. My
number 9 is the MS-18E Camphor from 0080.
That's a really good one, too. My number 9 is the ZGMF-X42S Destiny Gundam.
My number 8, and everything's the same from here on out, is the GN002 Gundam Dynamis from 00.
My number 8 is the GN-005 Gundam Virtue with the GN004 Gundam Nadale.
My number 7 is the ZGMF X20A Strike Freedom Gundam from Seed.
I like that one, too. My number 7 is the RX-78 GPO-1FB Gundam Zephyranthes Full Burn Year version.
My number 6 is the ZGMF X09A Justice Gundam from Seed.
My number 6 is the RX-78 GPO-2A Gundam Visalis.
My number 5 is the TMF A802 BUCUE, or BUCUE, from Gundam Seed.
My
Gundam
number
Dog.
5... Yeah. Metal Garurumon is your number 5. My number 5 is the AGX-04 Gerbera Tetra.
And my number 4 is the GNX UO2X Masurao from Gundam 00, Mr. Bushido.
My number 4 is the GN-00000 Gundam with the GN-010 00 Riser.
My number 3 is the GN001RE Gundam Exia Repair.
My number 3 is also the GN-001RE Gundam Exia Repair.
My number 2 is the GN005 Gundam Virtue with its counterpart, the GN004 Gundam Nadale.
And my number 2 is the MS-18E Kempfer.
My number 1 is the MS-07B3 Goof Custom.
And my number 1 is the ZGMF-X20A Strike Freedom Gundam.
Fuck yeah. All right, so how do these fit into our existing top 10 mobile suits list?
Yes, well, they don't in mine. I like all those mobile suits a lot, but again, this is, I think, a consequence of me having lived with this stuff for so long that, like, I already knew what my top 10 mobile suits were before we even recorded the podcast, and it turns out they all appeared in shows in our year one. The only adjustment I made to mine, well, we'll go over it again, but my only adjustment I made to mine was to change specifically the Goof to the Goof Custom as my number 1. But Other than that, I didn't change anything for my top 10 mobile suits because they were my top 10 mobile suits, it turned out.
I added 3 from the list we just said. And really only one of them is entirely new because one of them was switching the Goof to the Goof Custom. So, do you want me to share mine?
Let me just go over mine really quick, just as a recap for people. Again, this is the same list I did for the first anniversary, but this is my top 10 mobile suits, retains as for year 2. My number 10 was the RX-78-2, the original Gundam. My number 9 is the Oz 00 MS Tall Geese. My number 8 was the RX-178 Gundam Mark II. My number 7 was the XXXG 00WO Wing Gundam Zero, specifically the Endless Waltz version with the angel wings. My number 6 was the System Turn A 99 Double 8 or Turn A Gundam. My number 5 is the MSN-04 Sazabi. My number 4 was the AMX-004 Cubile. My number 3 was the MS-06 Zaku 2. My number 2 was the RX-93 New Gundam. And my number 1 is the MS-07B-3 Goof Custom. And those are and continue to be and probably will continue to be my top 10 mobile suits in the Gundam franchise.
So my top 10, I did rearrange them slightly, and then I added in a couple of those. So let me redo these. My number 10 is the MSZ-010 Double Zeta Gundam. I love this one. Honestly, in years to come, might rise higher as I think about specifically where I wind up putting the RX-78-2 because, it's very hard to balance all the different Gundams. Because in some sense, this might be my favorite straight up hero Gundam. I have it at 10. Could be higher, could be lower. I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I do love it. It transforms. It's great. My number 9 was the MSN-00100 Hyakushiki, Char's Gold Gundam from Zeta Gundam. One of the ones I wound up cutting was the Sazabi. I do love the Sazabi, but if we're going to have a red Char mobile suit, I already have one on here, and I'm gonna do the Hyakushiki for variety's sake. My number 8, this is one I added, was the GN001 Gundam Exia, and the repair version, obviously. Both of those slot in at number 8 for me. Number 7 remains the YMS-15 Gyan from the original, Mr. Makuve's suit. Number 6, I slotted in the GN005 and 004, the Nadle and the Virtue from Gundam 00. Had to have those on there. My number 5 is the System Turn A 99 Turn A Gundam from Turn A Gundam. Yep. Gotta love that one. Number 4, I went with the RX-93 V Gundam, or however you call that, New Gundam, from Char's Counterattack. And number 3, I put the RX-78-2 Gundam, made that the sort of highest Gundam because it's the original. And I just had a feeling the other day when I was looking through some of my Gundam the Origin manga, for inspiration and stuff, and I just saw one of those illustrations of the Gundam in there, what a versatile design this thing has been. And I just sort of, for the moment, I'm gonna do the default and put it as the highest Gundam, and I'll rethink that in years to come, but that's where it is for me. Number 2 remains the MS-06S Zaku 2 Commander Type Char Aznable Custom from the original Gundam. It's basically there for the Zaku 2, but then you make it red, and I like it even more, so that's what it's there for. And number 1 is the MS-07B3 Goof Custom from 8th MS Team, in its rightful place as King of the Pack, Head of Pride Rock. There it is.
Very good. Well, I'm glad that our number ones, we can all agree that the Goof Custom is the best mobile suit.
Yes. It's fucking great. All right. Let's do some songs.
All right, Jonathan. Let's talk about the Gundam songs. So we'll start with kind of like what we did with mobile suits. This is going to be a list of all this our top 10 songs from the second year of the show. So everything from where the fuck was in G Saviour? I don't know. I don't even know if you put that, because you made the list of what all the songs were. I don't even remember if you put a G Saviour thing on.
Were there songs in G Saviour?
There must have been something that played over the end credits. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe it wasn't lyrical. But if there was anything from G Saviour, it technically would have been in consideration. All the way up to the MS IGLOO 2. And I found this incredibly brutal. This was just heart-wrenching. Putting together this top 10, it was just, there's a lot of good music, particularly the 00 Gundam has just every song in that show was just so good. I'm like, well, fuck.
Every song in that show, the 4 for 0083 are perfect. Seed has several. Seed's inserts are better than its fucking theme songs. You got everything this year had great music. Everything, and it was very hard to make some of these cuts. Again, my 10 came together pretty naturally because I just knew which 10 I liked the most, but there were 5 honorable mentions as well, and then slotting them into the overall list was kind of tough too. There was one just wrenching cut I had to make.
Yeah. Most, like, it's... Because, there were, like, several that I knew for sure, like, these are going to have to be on the list. And then when I wrote them all down, I realized I had more than 10. So I was like, well, that fucking sucks. Because I usually have the, like, okay, I know exactly, like, these 4 or 5 things are definitely going to be on the list. They're going to be, like, in my top 5. And I had a list in my head that I was like, okay, I know exactly these are the songs that in my heart of hearts would absolutely be in a top 10. And then I wrote them all down. And then it's like, well, that's too many of them. So now some of them have to get cut.
Yes.
Yeah, so obviously that means anything that doesn't make this list, it's still probably really fucking good, because there's so much good music from what we covered, particularly because it moved into this for stuff like Double O Gundam and SEED Destiny, where you have like 8 songs just in those shows over the course of just the opening and ending themes, not counting inserts, or the movie for Double O Gundam. So it's like there's also a pretty significant volume of music, even if we covered kind of less overall, like, material in terms of like minutes of Gundam stuff we covered this year. I think there's probably just as many songs, basically, if not
I think
more,
so, because I prepared. So you had the list of songs from last year. I prepared the songs, the list for this year, and we tacked them together. And I think it like doubled in length. So there was a lot. Normally for a podcast like this, I would play little excerpts of the songs as we talk about them. I'm not going to do that because YouTube has gotten where we are into modern Japanese pop music that YouTube like litigates very aggressively. So I'm not bothering with that, but we will say the titles and you can go listen to them, and you should, because they're all great.
Yes, they are all great.
Sean, why don't you kick us off this time, and we'll reverse the order from last time.
All right, so do you want to go through our number 10, or you said you had honorable mentions? Do you want to do those at the end or at the
We'll do those at the end. We got to keep them guessing.
Okay, so my number 10 is, what my number 10 was swapped about a million times, and this is like a placeholder for all the songs that could be number 10, really, represented by a musical artist I really like a lot, Uverworld. It is Hakanaku Motoa no Kanashi, the third opening theme from Double O Gundam, opening up Season 2 with this sick fucking song. This is where, like, once we're into stuff like Double O Gundam, we're into a genre of music that I really like, which is that J-Rock. I have a lot of fondness for, so I listen to it quite a bit. I have a big anime playlist that is mostly just kind of J-Rock songs I like. A lot of I ended up, because I have this big playlist that started out with, I should just take some of the anime themes I like and just make a playlist on Spotify. And then eventually I just started putting songs in there that are just from J-Rock artists I like and have nothing really to do with anime at all. But Uverworld has a bunch of songs on there because they're a great band.
Yeah, I love this song. This one was really close. It's in my 5 honorable mentions, but for number 10, I ultimately went with its counterpart, ending number 3 from Double O, which is Prototype by Chiaki Ishikawa, which I think of as Prototype Boy. I don't know why it's not called Prototype Boy, because that's the lyric. And what pushes this over the top is the fucking vocals in the opening that play at the end of every episode that are like a chant, but then the song itself is incredible. I think this one, Double O, hit after hit after hit. I could have made this top 10 with just songs from Double O, and I would have been fine, except that I would have left off a bunch of great ones. But this one made the cut. God, it's good. The only bad thing about it is that they didn't call it Prototype Boy, which should be the name of the song.
Yeah, Prototype did not quite make my list, because it's there's like a fierce battle of like how many Double O songs can I really justify putting on here. Like I had to kind of set a limit at some point. And then I kind of ended up breaking that limit because I eventually just put the Uverworld song at number 10. But yes,
there you go.
Prototype / I'm like you. I'm always shocked when I see that the title of that song is just Prototype, because it's Prototype Boy to me also. It's a very good song.
Yeah, the vocals are so good on that one.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, my number 9, a choice that I think is, I don't get the sense that people like this song as much as I do, but it is, to me, it's one of my favorite songs. It is my favorite song from this show. It is 10 Years After by Chihiro Yonikura. It is the ending song to 08th MS Team. The opening theme, Shine of the Storm, It did not quite make my list because it was a kind of like a death fight between that and 10 Years After, which one I liked more. And then 10 Years After is very much like on my top 20 list from last year. I had Trust You Forever, the second opening theme from G Gundam, on there over the first opening theme, for the same reason of sometimes I just really like the B-side more than the A-side. And that's what it kind of feels like to me with 10 Years After. There's something I love so much about the really kind of just chill mood and vibe of the song. And this is also one that I have been living, I've been living with these songs in my life for like 5 or 6 years at this point, since I recently watched the show. And since I originally watched 08th MS Team, I cannot read the words 10 Years After without, in my head, hearing 10 years after Junen Gono, and then like that opening whole ditty playing to the song, because it's so catchy and it's so good. And you don't get the words 10 years after that often, but every once in a while I'll be reading a novel or something, it'll say like 10 years after the worst thing ever happened to me, and yes, and then the song starts playing in my head. And oftentimes that would annoy me when it's like, oh, the song is kind of like stuck in my head in a weird way forever. But I'm always happy when I hear in my head 10 Years After, because it's just such a good song to vibe to. And I've always, for whatever reason, I've always liked it more than the opening theme from that show. So my number 9 is 10 Years After.
I agree. It's on my honorable mentions. It's one of the 5, again. And I do prefer it to Shine in the Storm as well. Shine in the Storm's not on mine. And I think Shine in the Storm is great. But I think the thing I love about Shine in the Storm most is like the first 20 seconds.
Uh-huh.
And then I think the rest of it is a great song, no doubt about it, but doesn't quite rise to that level. 10 Years After, I think, is just a great song. Anime, not anime, whatever. And I do think that ending is... I think the opening animation for 8th MS Team is one of the best. But the ending animation is one of the best, like, simple anime endings. It's like the animation of that is like up there with Romantiku Agerio from like Dragon Ball, of like, this is a perfect anime ending with Shiro sitting there reading his book, people coming by. Great idea for an anime ending. It's so good.
Yeah, because I know that Shine in the Storm is like a really popular Gundam song.
Yes.
But I've always been like, you guys are sleeping on 10 Years After, because that song fucking rules.
Well, this is why we do a podcast together, Sean, because we have similar taste.
Uh-huh.
All right, my number 9 is Metamorphose from Zeta Gundam, A New Translation Movie 1 by Gact. This is the opening song from Zeta Gundam, A New Translation, which I think is one of the slickest parts of any of those movies, is the opening credits to movie 1, where it like moves through the universe to this song. It is just a banger. I listen to this song a lot, actually, since one little ritual I have, Sean, is whenever we start a new Gundam, I find the soundtrack online, and then I put it in my iTunes library, and then I take all the vocal songs and put them in a playlist that is currently at 9 hours long. And it's all the ones for what I've watched so far, and we've done on Weekly Suit Gundam. I'm not putting on like the Iron-Blooded Orphan songs yet, because I don't want to spoil myself. And when we got to Zeta Gundam, I found the soundtrack and I threw those on there, and I really liked it in the movie. And then I go to that playlist like every day for something, and I just started listening to this song over and over, and I think it is a super good song. I really like all of the Gact songs for the new translation. I think they are clearly meant to be sort of in the spirit of the Daisuke Inoue songs from Mobile Suit Gundam 2 and 3 in the original trilogy, and I think Gact has a similar kind of vocal quality to that, and I think this one comes the closest to capturing something like that. It is a really great song, and a place where I can honor the Zeta Gundam movies, which are not, for obvious reasons, not on a lot of these lists, because we've covered all the Zeta Gundam stuff, but I really like the music, so this is on there.
Yeah, none of the Zeta Gundam movie songs are quite on there. That is my favorite of them. And I think, like, for me, those songs are just at a disadvantage where I hadn't watched those movies until we had done the podcast. So, like, all these other songs are songs I've liked for, like, 5 years. So it's like Gact has to kind of work his way up for me, but I think that is a really good choice. All right, so my number 8... I really love this song. Meteor by TM Revolution, which is the insert song that plays when Kira gets hit the Freedom Gundam in the original Gundam Seed and comes in and fucks shit up. And it basically becomes like the Freedom Gundam theme song, so much so that SEED Destiny basically just plays it again when he gets the Strike Freedom. This song, this is like the TM Revolution song that made it onto my list. I kind of had a fight between this, I also really like Vestige, which is an insert song from Seed Destiny, and Invoke, which is the original opening theme for Gundam Seed, which is the best of the opening themes for Gundam Seed and Seed Destiny. But Meteor was the one that I think landed it, I think largely because it does have such a powerful association with me with the show and with the stuff I like most from Seed, and the music matches those sequences so perfectly. There's something so like momentous and ominous and kind of bittersweet about it, of both it's this kind of apotheosis for Kira, but at the same time, you know, an apotheosis is sad, right? It's him moving away in many ways from being normal and being human, and he is embracing violence for the right reasons, but it's still him embracing violence. And I think a lot of those like kind of conflicted emotions come together in that song, but that then build to this chorus that feels very triumphant as he's locking on to, you know, he's doing his Panzer Dragoon thing and fucking everything up. It's just a song I've listened to a lot over the years, and it is associated so much with the show that whenever I listen to it, I feel like I can just see the sequence from the show in my head and like hear the voice actors and all of that, because it's so well executed and it's such a perfect song for what Gundam Seed is doing.
There is a different song from Seed that does that for me, and we'll get to that higher in my ranking. I will say, no disagreement about the greatness of Meteor. My favorite TM Revolution song did not make the top 10, but it's in my 5 honorable mentions, and it was Ignited, the opening to Seed Destiny. I feel like I'm in the minority. I'm not a huge fan of Invoke from Seed 1. I think it's good, but I think Ignited is great. I love the opening to that and just how big it gets, and I think the whole song is great. I love the vocals. So that one was in my honorable mentions. Did not make my top 10, but TM Revolution, you can't have Gundam Seed without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was your number 7, right?
That was my number 8.
That was your number 8. So my number... Oh, I haven't done my number 8. Okay, sorry. I'm losing track of things. There's so many songs. My number 8, speaking of Seed Destiny, is Life Goes On, ending number 2 from Gundam SEED Destiny by Mika Arisaka, which is sort of... It's not the same artist, but it's kind of like a spiritual sequel, I feel like, to Although We Were Always Together by Seesaw, which we might talk about in a little bit. And I love this one. I think its opening riff, which they play at the end of every episode because of how SEED Destiny does that super slick thing where it plays the music into the into the ending credits, is great. I've listened to this song many times. It's that stretch of SEED Destiny is one of the better stretches of SEED Destiny, and so I have, you know, my best memories of that show with it. But I also just think this song is phenomenal on its own merits, and one of the better. I think that's the highest song I have from SEED Destiny. So that was my favorite music from SEED Destiny. Great song, love it.
Yeah, I don't think there's no SEED Destiny songs that made my list, but that would probably be it. I like that. I like Reason, which is the first ending theme, also quite a bit. I think that's just like a fun tune. And I like Vestige, the insert song from that Revolution a lot also. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. It's like, man, there's a lot of good fucking music, and yeah, SEED Destiny just nothing quite broke through, even though a lot of it's very good. My number 7, the reason why Prototype did not make my list is because this song made my list. It is Trust You by Yuna Ito, which is the fourth ending from 00 Gundam, kind of closing out season 2. This song is just fucking great. This is much more J-pop, and it is, I think one of the things I love about this song is it is very much in the same style of J-pop that Hikaru Utada plays, for people who are Kingdom Hearts fans, which I'm not. But people who are, you know Utada's music because she does all like the big iconic songs associated with all the games, going back to Simple and Clean, which was the trailer and like kind of main theme song for the original Kingdom Hearts. And it's a similar kind of J-pop that feels like it's very poppy, and yet it has like an epic quality to the music at the same time that I really enjoy. And I think one of the things that particularly pushes Trust You over the edge for me is that 00 Gundam uses its 2 ending themes for Season 2 better than any other ending theme for any other of these shows, specifically in that it has multiple different versions that it will play. There's like, I think 5 different versions of Prototype and 5 different versions of Trust You that play with like different kind of lead-ins to the main song. And they're all great, and it works so well for Prototype, but specifically with Trust You, there's a couple of episodes that end with the going straight into the chorus of Trust You without any of the instrumentation. And the chorus of Trust You is just the singer, Yuna Ito, who has a beautiful voice, just belting out the words, I love you, I need you. And that coming at the end of some of those episodes of Double O Gundam where, like, Lock-On Stratos version 2 kills his love interest and stuff like that, and then you get those words come in, like, it hits you so hard. And then you get what is my favorite ending animation for Double O Gundam, which is the animation accompanied with Trust You. I just think it's like a kind of like an all-time great Gundam ending sequence, especially with how they use it in the show. But even just on its own, I have a lot of love for this song.
No disagreement. It's a great song. Prototype Boy is a little more my speed for season 1, but I love them both. But my heart is really with my number 7, which is Friends, ending number 2 to Double O by Stephanie, which is, you might also remember as the Boy Band on the Beach ending, where you have the animation of your 4 Gundam boys on the beach, cutting each other's hair, frolicking, just generally getting into homoerotic shenanigans, and it's fantastic. And then this song, too. I love the opening guitar riff that you kick out of every episode with is so good. But the whole song, it builds to, like, every time that song builds to its big chorus, I get so energized. I've listened to it so many times, and it always works on me, where, like, it's not a song I can listen to casually. It's a song I turn on and then forget what I was doing because I get distracted by it, including this was the song that I was listening to when you got on Zoom today and I didn't notice you were there for like 30 seconds because I was rocking out to this song. God, it's good. And again, fun anime boy shenanigans on the beach. Nothing wrong with that.
Yes, Friends did not quite make my list. Specifically, the song Friends by Stephanie. The TV show Friends also is not on this list. Weird. But yes, I'm glad it's there for you. I specifically want to shout out with Friends the palm mutes for whoever plays the acoustic guitar just does such a clean job with basically the rhythm part has these like a couple of really fast strums that then end with a palm mute, and that acoustic guitar rhythm player does a really, really good job with those. So yes, it's awesome song, great ending sequence, and I just love so much that band is just named Stephanie. I always find it very funny. It's a great name for a band. Yes, very good.
Yeah.
All right, so then my number 6, we're staying on the Double O Gundam train. My number 6 is Daybreak's Bell by Larkin Seal, the original opening theme to Double O Gundam. Man, God, we're now with like number 6. We're really getting to the place where it's very hard for me to figure out exactly where to rank these because all these songs are so fucking good. Daybreak's Bell, it's just fucking great. I don't even know what else to say about it. Like, it's just so fucking good, right? It's that one where I think you really appreciate how perfectly toned it is for Double O Gundam in terms of the mood of the song when they do the classic anime thing where they play again at the end of the whole show. So at the end of season 2, while the credits are playing, they play Daybreak's Bell again. And you get that great guitar riff at the top of that song. And you're like, yeah, this like kind of defines a lot of Double O Gundam musically is what Larkin Seal does here. It's just, Larkin Seal is a great band. They've done a lot of great music for a lot of shows. And yeah, it's a great song all around. I just like it a lot. I don't know what else to say about it other than this song's great.
We'll talk about it more later.
Yeah.
My number 6, Can't You See That You Are Sweet? Oh, Let Me Love You So. Mm-hmm. I love this song. Reach Out to the Sky Someday. The opening to 0080 War in the Pocket by Shina Megumi. I listen to this song a lot. It's so sweet. I love the instrumentation. I love the rhythm of it. This is true for a lot of these, but the version that Hiroko... what's her...
Hiroko Moriguchi?
Hiroko Moriguchi. I was like, in my head, I was seeing the kanji, like, on my iTunes chart and trying to put it together. Sorry. Hiroko Moriguchi's cover album. She covered this on volume 2 of those. Yeah. And I love that one, which is all acoustic, and the way it's all done with, like pan flutes and, like, children's instruments is really good. But the original version's great, too. I often, for whatever reason, turn this on when I'm outside playing fetch with my dogs. It makes me think of them. I really like it. It's such a sweet song. It's such a perfect opening to 0080. One of my favorites, and I think I always thought this would wind up like within my overall top 20, and I'll just spoil it, did not. It wound up just outside, which is... Mm-hmm. There's too many good ones, Sean. Yep. What am I going to say? Yeah. What am I going to say? I love this one. you know, and I think going into this year where I had already seen this show, I would have thought this would have been even higher. And then we watched Seed and we watched Double O and, you know, all of that. So it's crazy, but it's a great song.
Yeah. So neither of the War in the Pocket songs made my list, the opening or the ending theme, even though I love them a lot. And I think it was one of those things where I was like, man, this is a really competitive list. And there's a part of me in the back of my head was like, well, there's no fucking way Jonathan's not going to have this song on his list. So, like, you can just have him talk about it, and then you can free up space on your list. Because, yeah, I love those songs so much, but they just did not quite make the cut for me. So I'm glad that it's there for you. My number 5 is a real banger, is Back to Paradise by Miki Matsubara, which is the insert version of what is basically the opening theme song to Stardust Memory, only the insert version that plays in the first episode is English language lyrics, and there's something about the pace of the song and those lyrics that I think it just sounds better to me. And although if you go with the original version, it's also fucking great. It's such a great 80s style rock tune. Just all across, it's like so my shit. Like, this song is so good and such a good 80s style song that I have an 80s playlist that is on my Spotify that I would use sometimes in the classroom for my students to just like play when they're like working on stuff. It's like, you guys have been doing a good job here, let's like listen to like some like real like tunes and put on this 80s playlist or something. I have like a whole bunch of playlists, and I snuck Back to Paradise in there. And I had multiple students comment to me how much they liked the song. And obviously none of them would have heard it before. I have yet to encounter a student that was into Gundam. There are lots of people into anime, but Gundam, I think they need to be a little bit older to get into the Gundam stuff.
Hey, when you meet that student, instant A.
Yes, exactly.
You do not need to come to class anymore. Go home, watch more Gundam. That's your homework.
Yes, and then you come here, and then we can talk about Gundam. And that's what your test is. It's just like, let's talk about some cool Gundam stuff.
On episode 31 of Weekly Suit Gundam, what did we say about episode 2 of MS IGLOO?
Exactly. But yeah, Back to Paradise. I love everything about the song. I love the beat. I love the drums. I love the guitar riffs that they do. It's such a simple kind of song, but it's executed so well. And then Miki Matsubara's vocal performance, I think, is just perfect. It's got the right kind of almost raspy vocal quality that you want for this kind of song. It's super catchy. It's a song I listen to all the time. It's a song I've been listening to all the time for years. And it is also, for me, it is the song I think about when I think of like late 80s into the 90s OVAs, not just Gundam, but anything. They always have a song that is kind of like Back to Paradise. And Back to Paradise to me is like the platonic ideal of the OVA song. I think we talked about that. We talked about Stardust Memory. But it is the song, when I listen to it, I just think about that era of anime because it just hits that. And it's like, this is a song that is played over some crisp, gorgeous fucking 90s OVA animation because that's just what this song is made for, and it's so good.
Absolutely. My number 5 is the first ending to Mobile Suit Gundam Seed, Ana ni Isho Datta no ni, Although We Were Always Together by Seesaw. One of the canonical Gundam ending songs. Mm-hmm. It is so great. It's the first one where you get Gundam Seed's thing of playing the song a little bit over the end of the episode into the credits with that main lyric, that comes in almost as a whisper, and then you kick into the full song with that great rhythm, and it just stays up at that energy throughout. It is a masterpiece, and I love it, and I assume it's on your list too.
Yeah, we will talk about it later. For
okay.
Sure.
Then you're number 4.
Yes, my number 4, getting back into some Double O Gundam bullshit, I think now I want to say, yes, I believe now every single ending theme for Double O Gundam will be represented on our list, because number 4 is Wanna by the Backhorn, the first ending theme to Double O Gundam. This song fucking rips so hard. It is so good. And one thing I love about it is also stylistically like weird for an ending theme to an anime.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just like stylistically kind of like a weird song because the Backhorn is a really great band, and I love their style. They flow really naturally between punk and, like, when I say punk, I mean like not pop punk. It's more like a traditional punk style, going back more to some of the stuff you get in the 70s with like the Sex Pistols or the Ramones or something. Between that, metal, and more like kind of traditional rock style, and they mix those three styles really effectively. I think Wanna is like one of the best songs they've done. It might be their best song that like amplifies that or symbolizes that approach to music in terms of genre, because I feel like Wanna just exists at like the perfect midpoint of that kind of Venn diagram of classic 70s punk, metal, and rock. And it sort of over the course of the song flows and uses different stylistic elements from all the genres, all genres that I have a lot of love for. And I think it's particularly how potent the punk attitude of Wanna is that just like really hits me, because I think you just don't have music that's written like that stylistically much at all these days. Like, punk as a genre has moved so far away from that because of the influence of like grunge and pop punk, that like Wanna just gets that like just dirty fucking feel that classical punk has, and it just like hits me in my punk loving heart a lot, and it's just a great song that every time you would go into it at the end of one of those first 12 episodes of Double O Gundam, it's just gnarly, and it fits the tone of the show there early on, where you're just kind of like in some ways dissociated from the show because you're not really close to any of the characters. It's so much more about what's happening in the world and the politics and the messiness of it all, and then you get just this like punk metal ballad and to end every episode, and it just like steals my heart every time I hear that song.
It's so good. I definitely in contention for my list. I love this song to death, but I knew you loved it even more. So it was the exact same logic you had with Reach Out to the Sky. I just said, Sean will talk about it. I will leave it to him. It's one of the best anime endings. It's so unique. I love the animation that goes with it too. I feel like they found a way to do that animation that really fit the staccato punk of that song. It's very. I also love their song in the movie.
Yes.
It's up there as well. All right, my number 4. Don't come to me just because you're lonely tonight. Lonely's only part of your game. This is Magic from 0083, the ending to the first half of that show by Jacob Wheeler. I have listened to this song an obscene number of times. I love it. I described it on the episode. It's basically like a missing song from Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, specifically the second half of that album, which is the ballads. That's what this sounds like. And it is so good. It's like the best Michael Jackson song Michael Jackson never recorded. In that, again, that ballad kind of thing he did early on. I adore it. I listened to it a lot, and I also found this article. This is a blog post from 2016 that someone wrote, who's a Gundam fan, loved this song, and tried to figure out who the guy who recorded it was, this artist Jacob Wheeler. Wound up contacting him, doing a little interview, and I'm looking at the webpage right now where he talks about this. Apparently at the time of the project, of 0083, when he recorded this song, he was living with his family in Tokyo, working as a magazine model, nightclub singer, and backup singer for various Japanese bands. He spent about 6 years living in Tokyo, and during his time in Japan, he appeared in a film. He did some stuff like this. Bobby Watson, who was a producer and bassist for the band Rufus with Chaka Khan, put out a call for singer-songwriters in the area because Sunrise was looking for songs to use in a new Gundam series, and after providing Watson with several demos, his song Magic was selected, and Sunrise wanted Wheeler to perform it. So Wheeler said that he began his relationship with Sunrise through that song. The inspiration came from friends with relationship troubles. He wrote the sort of chord changes and mood before he went with the lyrics, and I think you can really feel that. It is such a moody, atmospheric song. There's a bunch of great. If you just Google Jacob Wheeler Magic, you'll find this whole story. It's really interesting. I don't think continued. Yeah, so he left Japan in the early 90s. Didn't really pursue music anymore after that. He became a stockbroker and travel agent, managed multiple bank branches for Citibank, and recently got back into singing and acting in the last couple of years. And then he has a photography business now, and you can find that website. I think that is a fascinating arc, and I good God, this song should be better known. It is so great.
Yeah, it is a really great song. It didn't quite make the cut for my list. I think like kind of Back to Paradise is sort of selected as my Stardust Memory like representative because I was having a hard time finding space for all the songs I liked on this list. But yeah, it very much is to me. It's like Magic by Jacob Wheeler and Human Touch by Warren Weeby, the ending theme to After Gundam X, like are there together. It's like a what the fuck? Where did these songs even come from? They're so good, and they feel like it feels like some like Sunrise must have gone out and licensed some like great musical artist I had never heard of from like the 70s or something that worked in over here, and you're like, no, this is just like regional music made for this thing by this guy. Yeah, it's fascinating.
And I will say one of my hardest cuts was the other 0083 ending, Evergreen by Mio. I think that song is utterly gorgeous. All four, 0083 has pound for pound one of the. It's like that, Zeta, and 00 have the best set of songs, and it's so good.
Really, really fucking good. All right, my number 3 is Akatsuki no Kuruma, or Wheels of Dawn by Fiction Junction Yuka. This is the insert song that plays in Mobile Suit Gundam Seed. That starts playing a couple times near the end of the show. I think most iconically when you have everybody blasting off from Orb, and you have the Lion of Orb, Kagali's father, staying behind and burning in the rubble of his country as he sees his daughter off as they go to end the war. That whole sequence is fucking amazing. And this song is a big part of it. We'll also be hearing another song that is composed by the artist Yuki Kajiura, who is the musical artist behind all the Fiction Junction songs. We also talked a little bit about a different Fiction Junction song, not Yuka, but Fiction Junction Lisa, because that is the artist that did the ending theme to Kimetsu no Yaiba, because Fiction Junction is basically just the name that Yuki Kajiura uses when she's working on the anime project, and she basically makes the song and then works with a singer to sing it. And so a singer named Yuka sung this song. Wheels of Dawn, I have just always loved this song so much. It was that thing that when Hiroko Moriguchi said that she was going to do a second album of Gundam song covers, and I was like, okay, well, they're definitely going to get to Seed music because there wasn't any Seed music before, and there's 2 fucking songs that she has to do, and I saw the song list, and both of them were on there.
Yep.
One of them I've yet to talk about on my list. The other one is Wheels of Dawn, and that version is also fucking amazing. Just like all the acoustic guitar version, or the acoustic guitar work in the song is amazing. The like beat and pace of the song, the mood, the tone. It so perfectly captures the melancholy and drive of what they're depicting at that point in Gundam Seed. And it's just a song I've listened to forever. It's also got just such a great title, Akatsuki no Kuruma. It's so evocative of what the song is about and what it feels like, is the wheels that turn as pushing Dawn along. It's a great song, it's my number 3. It is just fucking amazing.
Well, reminding everyone that we do not coordinate this ahead of time, my number 3 is also Wheels of Dawn.
If there's something in the water, why are our number 3s all the same? Because that was the same thing with fucking the mobile suits.
I know. Whatever the case, Wheels of Dawn is also my number 3 because it is amazing and perfect, and every time I hear it, I just see Kira reaching out to Othran, and their mobile suit hands clenching, and I shed one single tear for their bromance because it is beautiful and wonderful, and this song is so good. It is tied to one of the best sequences in the history of Gundam. It is a great song on its own, and I think the Hiroko Moriguchi cover is even better than the original recording. I adore this song, but I think you said it. There's a reason it's both of our number 3.
Yeah, it's a great song. My number 2, I have loved this song so much for such a long time, is the second opening theme from 00 Gundam, Ash Like Snow by the Brilliant Green. There is something about this song that when I want to listen to something that just has the chunkiest fucking power chords, this is the song you go to. There's something so meaty about the guitar work in the song I love so much, accompanied with, in a very good like pop, like this is very pop punk style, and accompanied with your like traditional pop punk. It's this very beautiful female vocalist that sings for the Brilliant Green, that I found out when I was looking up stuff about the song that she's also married to the bassist for that band, which is very cool. And she also is the singer that did. She is basically the singer for the Brilliant Green that is Tommy Heavenly 9 that did Unlimited Sky, one of the insert songs for Double O Gundam. Another fun fact for people. This is one of the reasons why that song is so sick. But Ash Like Snow. This is my favorite song from Double O Gundam. It is one of my favorite Gundam openings. I think it is probably, I like this song more than other people, but it just like hits for me just exactly what I want from a pop punk sort of J-pop punk sort of style song with those meaty fucking power chords, just really beautiful vocals. I think it just, for me, it captures everything about like the that side of the tone of Double O Gundam, that like era of late 2000s J-rock kind of music. It just I've listened to it so much over the past 5 to 6 years. Yeah, it's just, it's a song that every time it comes up on a playlist that I'm listening to, not only do I have to listen to it, I have to like stop and headbang while I listen to it because this song is so sick.
Great song, not on my list, but you've always liked this one a little more than me, but it is very good and I'm glad to see it there. I will say my top 2 was exactly like my Mobile Suits. When I started this list, I wrote number 1, number 2, because I knew them immediately. My number 2 is The Winner from 0083 / Back to Paradise. They're kind of not interchangeable because they are different, but like they're a clear A-side, B-side of the same thing by Miki Matsubara. I have listened to this. So, 0083 I watched way back before I watched like Zeta and stuff. We just didn't review it, and then we came back around to it. So this one has been on my playlist for a long time. And whenever I just need a pick-me-up, I can turn on The Winner or Back to Paradise. But I think The Winner is even better for this specific reason of just the get pumped. Like, the opening chords to this, I love it in the animation too, but just that basic guitar riff, it is so fucking 80s. And that rhythm, I love it so much. And then you get into the main lyrics and everything. In either version, I agree, I think the English lyrics hit a little harder, in part because the instrumentation is just a little sparser on Back to Paradise, and so the vocals come through a little stronger, which is why it works so well as an insert song in that episode. But this is easy top 5 Gundam openings for me, which you'll see it is. If you just cut out everything else and just go with openings, it's in the top 5 on my overall list. I love it. You said a lot about it, and I echo all of that. I think both versions have their merits, and I think ultimately I maybe lean towards The Winner for some of its instrumentation, and just because, again, I can feel down, I can feel low energy, and I can put on the first 30 seconds of The Winner, and I will want to go like run around the block. It's so great. I wish it was attached to a show I liked slightly better, but boy, it does. I will say 0083 gets as high as it does on my overall rankings because of the songs. It really, when I look at like, well, versus this show has this straight, it doesn't have The Winner. Fuck it. This is better. There you go.
Yeah. No, it's just, no, fucking hell. The songs are so good. All right, my number 1, I think everyone knows what it is Annani Shodatta no ni, or Although We Were Always Together by Seesaw, another Yuki Kajiura joint. The original ending theme for Gundam SEED. This is one of my favorite Gundam songs. It has been forever. There's something about this. I mean, this is one of those songs that made me sort of sit up and pay attention to Yuki Kajiura as a musical composer as well as a singer. She has then done a lot of stuff on Kimetsu no Yaiba, but she also does all the stuff for like the Fate series, basically all the stuff. They have different composers sometimes, but that, like the Kata no Kyokai movies that are connected to the Fate stuff, and she's just such a awesome musical artist that has also been like the fuel behind like 3 or 4 different bands like Seesaw, like the Fiction Junction kind of label, and a couple of other bands that also do opening and ending themes for different anime series through the years, and all of them are great, and all of them like have their own sort of musical spin on Kajiura's sort of like main thing, which is these very kind of like heart-rending, gorgeous, beautiful melodies, usually by like really incredibly talented female vocalists that sing them. And I think there's something about Annani Shodatta no ni in particular that's interesting, particularly within her like musical work, that it has more of that what I would associate with more traditionally with SEED, with this kind of electronic, more kind of pumping element to it that it gets into outside of like that kind of opening that really haunting opening that leads in. And there's something about that mix that I find very kind of enchanting about this song. But it is, part of what makes this song so good for me and why it's ranked so high is also it is used so effectively within Gundam Seed. And it is one of the things that makes the first half of Gundam Seed work for me, where that side of the show is really messy. But every time an episode ends, you're like, well, this was really good, because every time it ends, it starts playing the beginning of this song, where you get the title of the song, Annani Shodatta ni, sung in this really haunting way, as it leads into the end credits. It's that really great, what I feel is like pretty iconic end credit sequence of the camera panning horizontally over all the characters in this like desert wasteland with these like expressions of utter despair at the like carnage of what has been going on in this war. I just love this song so much. I love that title in that chorus line. I think there's something about the use of the Japanese language there with that phrase "annani shodatta ni" that is so poetic. The pacing of the glottal stops, which are those like basically anytime there's a double consonant in Japanese, it's using a glottal stop, so that gives you that annani isho datta ni. That's kind of like stops there that provide extra emphasis, and the usage of the like repetition of the N vowel. It's just such a beautiful poetic use to the Japanese language, and the lyrics throughout the song I think in Japanese are really gorgeous. This has been one of my favorite Gundam songs for a very long time. I'm very happy that now I can put it in my list and talk about it in the scope of Gundam music as a whole, because to me it is like one of the all-time great Gundam songs, certainly one of the all-time great ending themes for an anime.
Absolutely. Love it to death. But my number one is Daybreak's Bell, the first opening to Double O by Larkin Seal, who is a band I've liked for a long time because they did one of the openings for Full Metal Alchemist, the original show, and then the opening and ending for the movie Conqueror of Shambhala, and I've always loved their music. But Daybreak's Bell is next level. This is such a stealth banger to me, because the first time I heard it, I went, this is really good. And the second time I heard it, I went, man, this is really good. And the third time I heard it, I went, wow, this is... And every time since, literally, this is a song I like at least a little bit more every time I've heard it. And I like keep that in the back of my mind. Every time I turn it on or watch an episode, I would go, yeah, I like this a little bit more this time. There's something about the build of this song. It's got a great opening, obviously, but then it kind of is a little softer. It's got this kind of like stop-start sort of staccato to the lyrics. And then when it just blossoms into the chorus, it is so virtuoso. I don't know how else to say it. And I wish I had better language to describe music, because it is such a phenomenal thing this song does. And every time I hear it, I just see the gorgeous animation from this opening in my mind. It is almost like an acrobatic song for me, the way it like feels like it is embodying like the movements of like the Gundams in the opening and things like that. And every time I listen to it, that build up to that chorus, and then the chorus itself, which is just so gorgeous, and the vocals are so precise, and they pull you along so beautifully, I fall deeper and deeper under the song's spell. It was an easy number one for me here. It's pretty high on my overall top 20, but I think it could rise even higher. We'll check back next year, and there's one song like that from year one that went several spots up for me in year two, and I think this one could jump the line as well. It is an all-timer to me, and also is connected to one of my favorite Gundam shows, so that sure as shit doesn't hurt.
Double Gundam has some really good goddamn music, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Uh-huh.
We seem to agree on that, Sean.
Yep.
How many of the songs on your list were Double O? I think I had 3. How many did you have?
I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, half your list.
Yes.
No shame in that.
And the other one, because my number 11, what is like my highest honorable mention, is Closed World, the backhorn song from the movie. So it was always going to be 5. It was just like, which 5 is it going to be?
Yeah, for my honorable mentions, I talked about most of them. Ignited from SEED Destiny, 10 years after from 8th MS Team, opening 3 to Double O by Overworld, and then Evergreen from 0083. The one I didn't mention yet was Men of Destiny from 0083, the other opening. I also love that one. Didn't quite make the top 10. One thing I'll say about Men of Destiny, I like it in the show. Hiroko Moriguchi totally reworked that song for me. I think her cover of that shoots that song into the stratosphere and like makes it one of the greats. I think the original recording is good, but hers really draws out what a good song that is.
Yeah, I agree that song doesn't leave a huge impression on me from Stardust Memory. Like, it's not bad, it's just not my favorite. But her version of it, if you were specifically talking about that version, it would probably break into my top 10 because it is.
Yeah,
that cover is incredibly good. I want to shout out also, because most of my other, like, what I would call honorable mentions, we've also basically talked about either because they were on your list or I mentioned them, like Vestige from SEED Destiny. I do also want to shout out, just because this was a song I never listened to a lot for whatever reason, and then rewatching this movie brought it back up, and I was like, this song's really fucking good, is Qualia, the Overworld song from that movie.
Yes.
The fucking song is amazing. Like, it's so good. I for whatever reason, like, I just didn't listen to that song a lot in the years since I watched that movie, and then rewatching the movie, I'm like, why have I not, like, put this in, like, a bunch of playlists and, like, listen to this song a lot more, because it's incredibly good.
It's fantastic. Honestly, we could have done like top 10 from 00 and then a top 10 from everything else, and it probably would have been easier. But I think it worked out. So now should we tell the people how some of these fit into our overall top 20 songs?
Yes. So, I guess I'll say, starting off that, I don't think I moved much around that was already there. I think I'm kind of going to save that a little bit more for probably next year when a little bit more is settled, because it just feels like because I'll say 6 of those 10 made it onto my list, which means 6 songs had to come off, and it basically was my bottom 6. And there's one song on here I'm going to have to find a way to put back into my list, but I just want to go through very quickly the songs that were on my list last year that got cut. Were Here Comes Char, or Shaga Kuru, which was my number 20 last year. Trust You Forever, the second opening to G Gundam. Broken Mirror, one of the Unicorn Gundam songs by Boom Boom Satellites. This is the song that it feels wrong that it's not on my list, and I'll need to think about where it fits in, because I feel like it was too low, but it also, I wouldn't put it super high. I don't know what to do with it. Is Eternal Wind, the song from F91 by Hideko Moriguchi. It is such a Gundam song. It has to be on the list.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell you're doing. That's heresy.
Yeah, I don't like it as much as you, but it certainly should be a top 20 song. I don't have to figure out what to do with that. Another one that really breaks all these kind of break my heart, they're not on there, but Anime Janai, the opening theme to Double Zeta, did not quite make the cut, and Stand Up to the Victory, the opening to Victory Gundam. I like that song. I don't like it as much as you. I didn't go to Japan specifically to sing it in karaoke, which I think was why you went, right? You did some other stuff too, but you wanted to sing this in karaoke.
Yeah, this is the one I sang with a stranger, you know. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so those songs did not quite make my cut, because I had to fit 6 more songs on this list, because there can only be 20, because I don't know why. We could put as many on as we want, because it is our podcast. But how many did it put onto your list, and do you know what got cut, Jonathan?
4 were replaced.
Okay.
So a low number, but it's tough. The 4 that I cut were Now Is Good Night, the insert from 79, Vigilante from Narrative Gundam, Aura from Turn A, and The Era Is Crying from Double Zeta. That one hurt. I love that song. And then I will be honest, the number 20 spot is one of the ones I replaced, and I am still to this second unsure of which song to put there, and I'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Should I just say that now and just go through my 20?
Yeah, go ahead and just run through all of your 20, and then I'll run through mine.
My number 20 right now is Magic by Jacob Wheeler. I've thought about, even though on the list I put Magic above Ana no Icha, although we were always together, I might swap these because I think I like Magic a little more, but Human Touch is also on this list, and I don't know if I need both.
Uh-huh.
So, I don't know. For now, I'm going to keep it as Magic, but we'll revisit this in year 3, all right?
Yes.
Because I do love that song also. So 20 is Magic. Number 19 is Dreams by Romantic Mode from After War Gundam X. That's the opening to that one. It's a banger. Number 18 is Re-I-Am by Aimer from Unicorn Gundam. 17, Believe in the Starry Sky by Mami Ayakawa from Zeta. That's the ending. I Can't Help Believe in You. Number 16 is Forever Amuro by Ko Ikeda. Number 15 is Zeta Transcending Time, also by Mami Ayakawa, the opening to Zeta 1. 14 is Wheels of Dawn by Fiction Junction. That's where that one fell. 13 is Flying in the Sky from G Gundam, Hitofumi Ushima. 12 is Cage from Narrative Gundam, Hiroyuki Sawano and TL. Number 11 is Turn A Turn from Turn A Gundam by Hideki Saijo. And then the top 10 are Human Touch by Warren Wiebe from After War. Number 9, a new addition, is The Winner, 0083, / Back to Paradise by Miki Matsubara. Number 8 is Where Daybreak's Bell Fell, 00 Opening 1 by Larkin Seal. 7 is Stand Up to the Victory by Tomihisa Kawasoe, Victory Gundam. My heart will always be with this song. The fact that they replaced that in Victory Gundam is the worst thing about Victory Gundam. Mm-hmm. No, this should have been all 50. Number 6 is Tobe Gundam, the original Gundam opening, because we play it on like every episode of the podcast, and I've listened to it a million times, and it's in my blood now. It's part of my DNA. I love it. Number 5, the best Gundam opening still, From the Aqueous Star with Love by Hiroko Moriguchi. Number 4, Eternal Wind by Hiroko Moriguchi from F91. I did rearrange the top 4 a little bit. So Eternal Wind went to number 4. Number 3 is now Moon's Cocoon by Akio Kui from Turn A. Watch out for that one in years to come, because it's risen a little bit already. Number 2 is my total cheat, where I put all 4 Daisuke Inoue songs from Gundam.
Right, I forgot you had done that. Yeah, you did just cheat. You're going to have to undo that cheat next year.
Nah, fuck off.
We're going to expand the total number of songs, and you're going to have to undo that cheat.
It's going to be hard, but they are a bundle at number 2, and I did move Beyond the Time into its rightful place as number 1, because I've listened to it more over the last year. I've thought about your arguments. I've thought about it. It is the ultimate Gundam song by it deserved to be there. It's perfect.
Yep. Okay, yeah, that's a solid list. My 20 then, so like I said, I didn't really bother too much moving things around within songs that already existed, just because it felt pointless if we're just going to add more songs eventually. I'm going to have to, I think it becomes really hard to rank these, because we're now talking about what is 3+ decades worth of music. So it's like, how do you rank a like pop punk masterpiece to me, like Ash Like Snow, next to Soldiers of Sorrow by Daisuke Inoue, a like folk classic? Like, they're like utterly opposite kinds of music that are separated by like 20 years stylistically. It's a madman's like task to try to fit that together. So I think these lists are probably going to get a pretty holistic reassessment. Or at least
and we are also definitely expanding this from 20 next year.
Yes, because that would be too brutal. So my number 20 is Amuro Forever, the iconic ending theme from Mobile Suit Gundam. My number 19 is Daybreak's Bell by Larkin Seal, so that made its way onto the list. My number 18 is Back to Paradise by Miki Matsubara. That also got onto the list. I'm excited to see what I did here, where I was like, I don't want to think about the rankings too much, because my number 17 is Wanna, also broke onto the list by the Backhorn. So those 3, I was just like, I don't know. Let's just kind of put them all in the bottom 10, and I'll think about those placements more in the future. And number 16 is Beginning by Daisuke Inoue. My number 15 is Zeta Tokyo Koite, or like Crossing the Time by Mami Ayukawa. My number 14 is Hoshizora no Believe, or I Can't Help Believe in You, that song. My number 13 is Aura, the ending theme, the original ending from Turn A Gundam. My number 12 is Wheels of Dawn, or Katsuki no Kurama, so that got up on the list in a pretty high spot. Fly, or Tobe Gundam by Ko Ikeda is my number 11. My number 10 is I Am from Unicorn Gundam. My number 9 is Turn A Turn. My number 8 is Ash Like Snow, broke up into the top 10 by The Brilliant Green. My number 7 is Human Touch by Warren Wiebe. My number 6 is Soldiers of Sorrow by Daisuke Inoue. My number 5 is Encounters by Daisuke Inoue. My number 4 is Annani Shodatta no Ni, or Although We Were Always Together by Seesaw, so that is the highest new song on my list, broke into the top 5. My number 3 is The Moon's Cocoon, or Tsuki no Mayu by Yoko Kanno.
Number 3! Again! What the fuck is going on here? Jesus,
our number 3s must always be the same, Jonathan. It's the blood pact we made. And yeah, my top 3 are also just completely unchanged and I suspect they will probably go unchanged, because my number 2 is From the Aqueous Star with Love, the second opening theme to Zeta Gundam, Hiroki Moriguchi's masterpiece. And then number 1, what is now on this podcast, or at least for now, the canonically best Gundam song. I will fight for this to always be the best Gundam song, Beyond the Time by TM Network, the theme from Char's Counterattack, because that song fucking rules, and that's all that needs to be said about it.
That is the musical equivalent to the Goof Custom. It's pretty unimpeachable. I think I overthought it last year, and no, it's the best.
It's just kind of immovable. Like, it's just like, it has to be there. That's when you make the list, you put that at number 1, and then you start thinking about what else you want to put on there.
Yeah, number 2 is the real, the competition here.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Now the hard part.
Yes. So now, finally, we've got the preliminary lists out of the way. That was all fun. That was all just us messing around. Now we've got to get down to the real science and the hard work, Jonathan, because it's time for us to address our rankings of every Gundam show that we have watched. So we're not separately ranking just the year 2 stuff, because it feels like that would be kind of pointless, because you'll see that ranking anyway within how it'll rank. So we have now watched, with the way we've combined things, because some of them, like we put the Gundam movie trilogy with Mobile Suit Gundam, and we left Awakening of the Trailblazer with Double O Gundam, and all that kind of stuff, how we kind of grouped things together. We have a list of 21 different Gundam, I call them Gundam Works, Gundam series, however you want to label it, that we have watched now over 2 years of this podcast. And we have each individually made a ranked list of those 21 in order, from 21 being the worst and number 1 being the best. So we'll run through our lists.
Question.
Yes.
I thought there were 20. What makes it 21? Are you counting Zeta Gundam and a new translation separately?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought that's what we were doing.
I can adjust to that. Give me a second. I know where I'd put it.
So you
21
you put
now.
In your list while I talk about it, because I felt like they are different enough compared to the original Mobile Suit Gundam movie to its original that it felt like we should find a spot to rank them, because we did do an episode entirely just dedicated to those movies. So that's what, to me, makes it 21. So we'll go through our list. I don't think we're not going to really talk about, I think, in depth any of the stuff from the first year. Because we have that podcast to talk about. But
the way we did it last year is we did these separately instead of going back and forth, because it would take forever doing it back and forth. So who should go first here and present their 21?
I'll go first, and also I'll do my 21, then you do your 21, and then we will have a chat about how we want to, what compromises or movements do we want to make a combined list to fill out our list from last year to a full 21. Our list of 11 from last year now to 21, and fit those together. I'm going to suspect that process is probably going to be relatively easy, because I think most of our placements are going to be pretty similar, at least in terms of what we put the new stuff at.
Yes.
But let's go ahead. I will start with my 21 rankings. This isn't the top 21. This is the only 21, because it starts with, at the bottom, 21. What will, I can say very definitively, remain the bottom of the list is G Saviour, because, I mean, this is the only thing that is only here because we were able to watch the movie together. It was a funny thing to do. If it wasn't for the fact that we could be in the same room and watch that movie at the same time, I never would have made through it all the way. It's garbage. It's barely Gundam. Nobody should watch it.
It's barely Gundam, it's barely a movie, it's barely a thing.
Yeah, it's just a bad 90s TV movie, a very bad 90s TV movie with horrible effects, like nothing plot, nothing characters, terrible jokes. It's
terrible acting.
Terrible acting. Basically, everything about it is bad. Nobody should watch it. The only reason to watch it would be if you wanted to see it to listen to our podcast. But I think, from what I remember correctly, we specifically talked about it on the podcast in such a way, intentionally, to make it that people would be able to enjoy the conversation without having watched this garbage movie.
We did a full plot recap, which we've never done, just so people wouldn't have to watch the movie. Yes, I will say, for G Saviour, one nice thing I will say about it is it makes me look fonder on the Doctor Who movie.
Yes. They're similar kinds of bad, but the Doctor Who movie at least has Paul McGann's performance, which is pretty good.
The Doctor Who movie is Citizen Kane compared to this.
Yeah, Sylvester McCoy is in the Doctor Who movie.
Yeah, he gets shot by street punks. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, the set in the fucking Doctor Who movie is already 1,000 times more artistic than anything in G Saviour. Garbage, bad movie. Nobody should watch it. My number 20 is Mobile Suit Gundam MS IGLOO. I probably don't need to say much about this, since this was also the last episode of this podcast. But it's just boring. Like, it's just really boring, and the animation is awful. It's, like, incredibly terrible, and makes it kind of impossible to be invested in anything connected to the plot or characters. I think the only particularly, like, redeeming thing about it is, one, that it is, at its heart, a museum curio. It's not really something that feels designed to be viewed outside of the context of it being this exhibit in the Bandai Namco Museum when it came out. But that's the only way you can obviously watch it now is remove it a little bit from that context. And if you're like a crazy, super duper hardcore Gundam fan, like that first episode has some kind of fun Gundam lore stuff with the Battle of Loom. That's mostly made irrelevant now because Gundam Origin exists, but it's still kind of an interesting concept, even if every episode is too long. And it's just it's an unnecessary piece of Gundam. And that's something that like I think is exclusive for 20 and 21 on this list. Is absolutely nobody should really feel compelled to watch these things almost in any context. They're just not that worth it. And both of them are things that we almost wouldn't have even done podcasts on. The only reason we did the MS IGLOO podcast is because I wanted to rewatch MS IGLOO 2, and it felt like, well, if we have to watch the first one if we're going to do the MS IGLOO 2 stuff also. So my number 19 then is Mobile Suit Gundam SEED Destiny. This is a bad show. It's an infuriating show. It is also a fascinatingly infuriating show. The thing I will say that puts it very definitively above MS IGLOO and G Saviour to me is that at least like it's interesting to think about and compelling to think about as like an artistic object that exists. It doesn't mean that it's good, but like it presents so many interesting ideas and fucks them all up. It presents a bunch of interesting characters and fucks them all up. It creates bizarre contradictions within the show, basically every single episode or minute of its running time, and trying to understand and resolve those contradictions is both engaging in a certain way, but also something that makes the show as utterly infuriating as it is. It is among the worst TV shows I've ever seen as like an artistic project, even if it is more competently made in some production senses than its predecessor Gundam SEED. Overall, Gundam SEED Destiny, that show makes me very mad whenever I think about it, and so it's very, very low on this list. My number 18 is New Mobile Report Gundam Wing and Endless Waltz. That used to be at the bottom of the list, and then we watched stuff that was worse than Gundam Wing. Gundam Wing's biggest sin is that it's boring. But it's also not as like a like weird train wreck the way that SEED Destiny is. My number 17 is Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 Stardust Memory. I know that there are people that really love Stardust Memory, and we, on our podcast we talk about it's got a lot of issues. I think particularly when you get closer to the end, Nina Purpleton is one of those confounding characters in the history of Gundam. You can't quite understand what they were trying to do with her. It ends up feeling incredibly sexist and insulting to the audience. And it's just too long. It doesn't know what to do with its protagonist Ko almost at all. It's got Ana Delgato, who is an amazing character, probably should have been the protagonist of the show, or at least should have had a lot more screen time because he's way more interesting than Ko, and he's not in the show nearly as much, and near as much as you think or he needs to be. But the show has kick-ass fucking music, and it's got that OVA animation and that great direction that is utterly undeniable. And it has some really great moments. Those first couple of episodes have incredible art to them and some incredible action sequences. There's some moments in the middle of the show, like that scene where Ko's sort of like captain dies because his mobile suit explodes, mostly because of a weird mechanical failure, and that sequence is really striking. And so it has some redeeming stuff to it for sure, but overall as a project, I think Stardust Memory just doesn't really sort of live up to what it wants to be. Number 16 is Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, a new translation, the movie trilogy. This is as high as it is because Zeta Gundam is very good. Most of what they do to change Zeta Gundam either is like kind of whatever, or it's actively bad, like the new ending. But it is an interesting thing to watch from a Gundam fan perspective, and that third movie I enjoyed a lot because the ending of Zeta Gundam is so fucking good. This was like a weird thing to try to rank, but it feels like it should sort of be seen as its own thing because it sort of wants to be its own thing in some ways, of recontextualizing and redoing certain elements of the Zeta Gundam story. And from there, I will say that those 21 to 16, those are like the whatever too bad section of the list, and everything above here is stuff that I like quite a bit. So 15 is Mobile Suit Gundam MS IGLOO 2 Gravity Front. This show fucking rules. It's a great little 3-episode thing that shows you a lot of fascinating different pieces of Gundam lore from a different perspective. That first episode in particular, I think, is a must-see for any Gundam fan. It is such a fascinating perspective on the early phase of the One-Year War from the Federation's perspective, when they do not have mobile suits to deal with the Zaku 2s that are raining from the sky and the hell coming from Zeon that they have to fight against. And it's just a great premise. executed phenomenally. And again, like, it is the reason why we watched MS IGLOO, which was a show I didn't really want to rewatch, was because I wanted to do IGLOO 2 and do a podcast on it, and it was really fucking good. Number 14 is Mobile Fighter G Gundam. It's just fucking awesome. Number 13 is After War Gundam X, also really good. This is all shows we did last time, and these rankings have not moved. Number 12 is Mobile Suit Gundam F91. Boy, that movie is weird, but it is fucking fantastic, and that ending is one of the great iconic Gundam things. Number 11 is Mobile Suit Victory Gundam. Number 10, something new, Mobile Suit Gundam, the 08th MS team. I had a pretty hard time once we got to here finding a place to put some of this stuff, because this top 10 is pretty tight with some really great stuff. 08th MS team is, it just has some of the best action of any Gundam thing. It has the great Gundam action scene with the Goof Custom near the end, and that whole episode is utterly phenomenal. I think the only reason why 08th MS team is at the lower end or at the bottom of the top 10 is mostly because I think some of the Romeo-Juliet romance stuff doesn't entirely work for it. And it's like the one major chink in the show's armor. The rest of it is, I think, pretty perfect. It's got an amazing soundtrack. It's got some great music, particularly 10 Years After, which is a very good ending theme. And that OVA animation is so good. Is so good. My number 9 is Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn, and the narrative we kind of put with that, so that's kind of unchanged. My number 8 is Mobile Suit Gundam SEED. This was also one I had a hard time finding a place for. I just love Gundam SEED a lot. I think it is one of the most, as is clear by where it is on the list, it is one of the 2 AU shows that I think is able to sort of break in and be as good, or at least one of the 2 we've covered so far, to be really in conversation and in competition with the classic Gundam stuff of quality for me. I think it just is able to handle its character stuff in such a fascinating way. And I think Kira's arc and the journey he goes on of this Superman-style story of being someone who is so incredibly capable but doesn't know how to use the power that he has to be productive and how to advance both his own interests and the interests of the world and the people around him, and him struggling with that is so strong to me. And then in particular when you have that mid-show moment, what is to me an all-time great Gundam sequence where he comes in with the Freedom Gundam, is unshackled from all these burdens he had been carrying for the first half of the show, and finally is pointed in the right direction and knows what he needs to do and how to do it. That is just to me a pure triumph of storytelling. The first half of the show is very messy, as we talked about a lot on that podcast, and that's why it's in this kind of bottom section of the list. But its virtues are so high to me. It has also just an incredible score, including all the lyrical music, but the score itself is one of the best. Now, number 7 is Mobile Suit Gundam Double Zeta. So Double Zeta and SEED, I think, were both kind of jockeying for the same spot for a while, because I think they both have similar sort of early on, they're rough in kind of trying to find themselves. And then once it clicks into place around the middle, you have 2 of the best Gundam things ever. Kira in the Freedom Gundam, or the Colony Drop in Double Zeta. I think why Double Zeta wins out is mostly because that 2-part Dublin episode in the middle of Double Zeta is some of the best Gundam stuff there is in any Gundam show. So as much as I love the Gundam SEED stuff, that really kind of puts it above Gundam SEED for me. My number 6 is Mobile Suit Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket. So this and what my number 5 is were in a harsh competition a lot. And it's, I kind of have it tied for what my number 5 is. War in the Pocket's just one of the all-time great Gundam things. I mean, obviously we're up here in the top 6. It has just kind of perfect. It's just kind of perfect. It's a perfect story, perfectly told, with incredible animation, incredible music. It's so tight as the 6-episode OVA thing that is basically a movie-style structure that gets at the heart of a lot of the core themes of Gundam in a way that feels both unique and also very accessible. It's such a good starting point if you're a new fan of Gundam and trying to get into the franchise. I think War in the Pocket is one of the most compelling arguments for Gundam as not just a single story like the original show, but as this ongoing franchise and project using these symbols and iconography and ideas to tackle similar themes. War in the Pocket is that first thing by someone who's not Tomino that really puts its foot down and says there's so much life here in the concepts that drive Gundam as a franchise. That War in the Pocket is kind of the thing that makes that what it is. It also has maybe the best subtitle of literally anything ever, because War in the Pocket, what a fucking title. My number 5, and again, this and War in the Pocket like swapped places about 10 times on my list because I was just struggled so hard figuring out what to do with it, is Mobile Suit Gundam Char's Counterattack. I think ultimately why Char's Counterattack for now is higher, it might evenly switch by the next time we do one of these lists, is mostly when I rewatch War in the Pocket, which I've done 3 or 4 times at this point. I love it as much as I always have, but I don't feel like I sort of find new depths to it. I have watched Char's Counterattack what must be 5 or 6 times at this point as a movie, and every time I watch Char's Counterattack, I like it more, and I notice something different about it, and it challenges me in different ways. And so I think that's the element of it that kind of ultimately kind of pushed it a little bit above War in the Pocket to me. Char's Counterattack is just fucking amazing. Number 4 is the highest new thing on my list. Is Mobile Suit Gundam 00. This is including the movie Awakening of the Trailblazer. Holy shit, 00 Gundam. This is the thing that I think this is the most my estimation of any show has improved on by doing the podcast on it. Not in terms of like specifically just the conversation, but also just rewatching it with the podcast mindset. Like I always liked 00 Gundam a lot, but if you had talked to me before we had started doing Weekly Suit Gundam and I had made this list, it maybe would have been in my top 10, but I don't think it would have been in my top 5. But I think I just like underestimated that show so much by not being able to have the conversations we had on the podcast. I'll say that the 00 Gundam podcast and the 3 podcasts we did are for me easily the highlight of season 2 or year 2 of the show. Like I just think they're some of the best podcasts we've recorded because the material from the show is so good. It is such a great re-examination of what Gundam is in the 21st century, really kind of taking, I think, what Gundam Seed had some ambitions to do in some ways, or at least it was marketed to do, and never really tried, of updating the concept of what Gundam is for the modern world, and Gundam Seed doesn't really do that much. 00 Gundam really looks at what was happening with things like the War on Terror and 9/11 and geopolitics in the mid-2000s. How had war fundamentally changed as a like political phenomena? And said, well, then what does Gundam have to say about what war is now compared to what war was in World War II, which sort of defined what Mobile Suit Gundam and the original kind of themes of Gundam we're looking at. And 00 Gundam does that better than anything you could ever imagine. I think it's just an incredibly smart show that's so well made with such great characters. It's deeply entertaining while also challenging you so much as a viewer to question your assumptions about both what Gundam can be and about what the world is. Like the choice to have Setsuna, the main character, and our Gundam boy be someone who is of Middle Eastern descent, I think is such like a bold, creative decision that really brings the whole project alive and gives you this perspective that Gundam has never given you, which is the perspective of people whose lives have been ravaged not just by war, but by the forever war, by this unending war generated by political tensions coming out of the Cold War, and in the Cold War itself, that have sort of ravaged the Middle East in the modern political era. And doing that through this show, it was just incredible. And also then it leads you into Awakening of the Trailblazer, which I think is just one of the best Gundam movies. It's one of my favorite animated movies, and sort of ends that saga by just going big and bold and crazy in the way that I think is the only time any AU Gundam thing that we have done so far like challenges and lives up to the promise of Toei no Gundam, and made by a different team. It's just 00 Gundam to me is like a peerless work of art, and one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. It is only surpassed by my top 3, which go unchanged so far. My number 3 is Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. My number 2 is Turn A Gundam called Turn A Gundam. And my number 1, as always, is the first and the best, Mobile Suit Gundam.
Interesting. There are some significant pockets of agreement. There are more significant pockets of disagreement than I thought.
Interesting.
So, I'll go through mine. There's one that we're going to have a fight on.
Okay.
And everything else I know is resolvable, but we'll see. The bottom is very similar. My 21 is G Saviour. It's shit. Who gives a fuck? My 20 is MS IGLOO 1. It's not shit. I'm not going to be that mean. It's just not worth much. My number 19 is Mobile Suit Gundam SEED Destiny, which I do think I like a little more than you do. but is in the exact same spot regardless.
Interesting. I thought that Gundam Wing was going to be 19 for you and 18 was going to be SEED Destiny.
Oh, no. Wing is better. Wing, if for no other reason than Wing has Endless Waltz, which I think is great.
Yes,
Yeah. No. SEED Destiny, I like a little more. I'm not going to defend it. It's a bad show. I don't think it's one of the worst things I've ever seen, the way you said, but because there are things in it I genuinely like, but it is definitely one of the most baffling pieces of storytelling I've ever seen in like the pop culture space. This is one small area of disagreement. My number 18 is Zeta Gundam: A New Translation. I mean, if you're just purely judging the Zeta Gundam material, it's better than some of the other things on this list. But and this is weird because I think on the episode I liked these movies more than you did.
You definitely did by a lot.
But I just, if we're going to separate them out, I don't think they're worth much. I think as an addendum to Zeta Gundam, they are an interesting alternate perspective. As their own thing, they are largely incomprehensible to anyone new, and I think the ending really kneecaps the entire point of Zeta Gundam. It would be like fucking Romeo and Juliet, where they live at the end. Like, I'm sorry, the story was built for a certain purpose, and if Hamlet kills Claudius and then goes and becomes the king and lives happily ever after, Hamlet isn't worth much, even if the rest of it was great. And I do think a lot of A New Translation is pretty good, but that element of it, I find more value as a standalone thing in something like 17, which is Gundam Wing and Endless Waltz, which I agree is very boring. It has a lot of problems, but it has some things I do very much like about it. It's got some great mobile suits. It's got some good individual episodes. Endless Waltz, as an OVA, as a movie, is very strong, and if we were ranking it separately, would be higher. So that's why that goes there. Number 16 is 0083 Stardust Memory. We are in agreement here that 0083 is better than Gundam Wing. I like 0083 in places. I think it's got several standout episodes. There are some episodes of 0083 that are really great on their own merits. I think the one where Ko is having his gay romance with the mechanic, or the other soldier from Xeon, and Magic plays, is great. I think the one where their commander dies is a fantastic episode. I think the premiere is really good. It falls apart in the second half, and Nina Purpleton is one of the worst Gundam characters. She's not as bad as like season 2 Kira, so thank you that Gundam SEED Destiny. You redeemed Nina a little bit in my eyes, because she's not that bad, but like, yeah, that part doesn't work. But God, the animation is wonderful, the music is great, there's a lot to love here. Number 15, the most pleasant surprise from the last year, is MS IGLOO 2. Exact same spot on our two lists. Yep. It's very good. It's, only 3 episodes and 90 minutes total, and a little less substantial than some of the other stuff, but I like it an awful lot. My number 14, this is where we have a disagreement. My number 14 is Gundam SEED.
It's going to be higher on our combined list, I'll tell you that right now.
Okay. We'll see. Gundam SEED is good. No doubt about it. That second half is great, and there are several utter classic moments, as you were outlining. I think for me, the escape from Orb with Wheels of Dawn is an even bigger moment for me than Kira's arrival with Meteor in the middle of the show, although that is, as you say, the turning point. I've only seen Gundam SEED once, and this is one place where it's a little tough for me, because I found the first half of this show really rough, and I think I probably hold the aesthetic side of this against it a little more than you do. I do think, I just can't put a show this ugly above some other things, no matter how good the storytelling is, because I think it definitely holds it back. When Gundam SEED is cooking, it is top-tier Gundam. There is no doubt about that. I think it is much more uneven than some of the other shows on this list. Like my number 13, which is After War Gundam X. I love After War Gundam X. I think it probably does not have any highs as high as Gundam SEED. Definitely doesn't have as high as Gundam SEED. But I think it is a much more consistent show. I find it thematically more interesting. I definitely look at the characters more fond. I think one of my problems with SEED is that I think Kira is okay for me at best. I never think he becomes a great Gundam protagonist. He is more of a cipher than anything else. And it is... I know for this ranking we need to separate Gundam SEED and Gundam SEED Destiny. The problem is Season 2 Kira and Gundam SEED Destiny is the worst Gundam character. and that is a problem for me in ranking Seed. My number 12 is Mobile Fighter G Gundam. I love Mobile Fighter G Gundam, and I will stand for it all day long. My number 11 is Mobile Suit Gundam F91. I put this down a little bit further this year because some other things rose in my estimation, and I can admit that F91 is imperfect, even though when it is at its best, it is as good as Gundam gets. It is so great. One that rose in my estimation, my number 10, is Mobile Suit Victory Gundam. Over the last year, Mobile Suit Victory Gundam has occupied a bigger and bigger space in my head. Mm-hmm. I think part of it is that the world, already dark when we reviewed this show, has gotten even darker. And I think there is such wisdom and virtuosity and bravado and daringness in Victory Gundam. And I think it is entirely possible that, especially if I rewatch it, that this could rise higher when we are done with this whole thing. I think Victory Gundam, I had some complaints about it when we watched it, although we were always on the same page that it's a great show.
Yeah.
But I think the things that don't quite work, some of the structural issues have faded, and some of my absolute strongest Gundam memories, what sticks in my head, a lot of it comes from Victory Gundam. And in fact, I really did consider putting it a couple spots higher. And I'm kind of hedging, but, let's see how it goes. Because part of that is I've spent a lot of time listening to the soundtrack for this show, which I think is one of the best.
Yeah.
I love this show. Even right now, I think I maybe should be higher. Number 9 is Gundam Double Zeta. Gundam Double Zeta is fantastic. It has its problems. I do not have the same issue you do with the first arc on Shangri-La. My problem is the stuff on Moon, and that stuff comes up in the first half and the second half and is very bad and should be cut. But man, when this show is cooking, it's the best. Judo is one of the best Gundam boys. The main cast is one of the best Gundam casts. Captain Bright has some of his best stuff in the whole series here. You have not just the Dublin episode, but I think the entire ending sequence then is phenomenal. And Judo sort of being this culminating force from Amuro to Camille, then to Judo, as the final voice in this trilogy of shows, is so powerful. And is why I think it deserves to be high. Number 8, I've got Gundam Unicorn. I can be persuaded to put Gundam Unicorn lower because it's been a while since I've seen it. This one is always hard to place for me, but that's where it is right now. My top 7 were very easy, and this was boom, 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 boom for me. Number 7 is 8th MS Team. I do not have the same problems you do with the Romeo and Juliet story, and I think its highs are just so incredibly high. And I agree that Gundam 00 was my favorite thing we did on the podcast this year, but a close runner-up would be our 8th MS Team episode, because I realize this is just a stupidly fun show to talk about.
Yeah.
And as much fun as I have watching it, doing that episode rose it in my estimation a little bit. It would be lower if we hadn't done that episode, but that's where it is. My number 6 is Mobile Suit Gundam Char's Counterattack. Masterpiece. My number 5 is Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. Also a masterpiece, but eclipsed for me by Mobile Suit Gundam 00, which is my number 4. We have 00 in the exact same place. It is number 4 for both of us. The difference is that I have it above Zeta Gundam, and I don't feel any qualms about that. I love Zeta Gundam, but I actually do think 00 is just straight up the better show. I think it is better paced. I think it is... Zeta Gundam probably has the higher high moments in its ending, but Zeta Gundam also has a couple of narrative cul-de-sacs and things that aren't perfectly planned out and that sort of stuff. And 00 is it is one of the most purposeful pieces of art I've ever seen, in that the planning and execution of 00, from moment 1 of episode 1 to the last moment of the movie, there is just no slack in this thing. It is such an overwhelming masterpiece to me. And then my top 3 are my top 3, and they will be. It's very solid for me. Number 3, War in the Pocket. It is one of the great anti-war stories, and as we talked about when we did the podcast on it, I think it is just one of the most airtight fictional arguments against war that I've ever seen, in what it constructs rhetorically and narratively to make an argument about how war hurts people, real people. It is unbelievable, and the final punch that it builds to is something else, and it is these last 3 are the ultimate S new type tier to me, and 2 being Turn A Gundam and 1 being Gundam 79. So no disagreement on those top 2. But Sean,
Yes.
I am now going to take these 2 lists and I am going to put them in the Google Doc. So
I already put mine in there for you, so you only have to put yours.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Yeah.
I also put our year 1 list of how we rank them together in there also.
Okay. We can, yeah. It's going to be different this year, which is fine.
Yeah, I just just for reference, if we wanted to look at it, I thought, I might as well throw that in there.
Yeah. So let's look for places of agreement. First off, the bottom ones are identical, 21 through 19. So should we start there?
Yes. G Saviour is the worst. MS IGLOO is the second worst. SEED Destiny is the third worst. I think that is an easy thing to do.
And our top 2 are the same.
Yes.
So, okay, that's easy. The polls we agree on. Now, so I have those there for us. Now let's see. Let's go with the low end here, Sean, because this area 18 to 16, there's a little tiny bit of disagreement, it seems, here. So you have Gundam Wing, Stardust Memory, then Zeta New Translation. I have Zeta New Translation, and then Gundam Wing and Stardust Memory. How do we want to reconcile those?
Let's just go with your order. Like, if you have Zeta lower than those other 2 and you like those movies more than I did overall, like, yeah, I mean, I'm not passionate about those movies. The only reason why it's even higher than those is just because I enjoyed watching the third one so much. I was like, well, I enjoyed watching that third movie more than I enjoyed these other 2 things. I don't think any of them are, like, great as things, so I'll just go with the thing I had the best time watching overall, and so that's how I ranked it.
That is totally fair, and I think if I were going by the exact same standard, I might do the same thing. I think my standard was a little more, like, I don't know, complicated, like, what do they put into the world of value, and I could see the difference, but...
I didn't want to think that hard about things I don't care about that much.
Okay.
Much like Zeta, the movie Zeta, Gundam Wing, and Stardust Memory. I think the thing I would care about most with that is Stardust Memory being above Gundam Wing, which we agreed on. So.
Me too. Okay. 15, we agree, is MS IGLOO 2.
Yep.
And then we start getting into disagreements. Okay. Do we want to have the SEED conversation now? Or do we want to go to the other end and talk about, like, the top 5, 6?
I'll say that I feel very passionate that I think Gundam SEED deserves to at least be in the top 10, even if it needs to be at the bottom. I think it needs to be at least in the top 10. I'm fine with it going down from where I have it, but...
Here's what I will grant. I would be perfectly happy putting it above, looking at my list, Gundam X, G Gundam, and F91. Okay, I have no problem with that.
Let's do I guess let's do that right now then. Because
we'll start there. I'm just saying, because then what we run into is Victory for me, and I would really struggle putting it above Victory. That's the wall. I'm even okay putting Unicorn lower or something like that. This is what my weird feelings about Victory that are evolving. But I think first thing I'm going to do while we're thinking about it is I'm going to take G Gundam X and F91 kind of unnumbered and throw them in this next tier.
Yeah, because I think we have them around the same spot in our list, right?
We do. We have a disagreement about, I think, Gundam X versus G Gundam, but we can talk about that. But those are the next tier. Those will be 14, 13, and 12 in some order.
Yeah.
Then, looking at your list, so I'm going to pull up this set for you, which you had SEED, Unicorn, 8MS Team, and Victory.
Yeah.
And I had in that zone Unicorn, Double Zeta, Victory, and then SEED I had lower, but we're going to put it higher. So let's see here. So 8th MS Team is also one where it seems like might be a sticking point.
Yeah. So let's just go ahead and order G Gundam after Gundam X and F91. Since we know that's going to be 14, 13, and 12. So
well, we have to fight over. I had G Gundam higher, and you had War X higher.
Yeah. So, but we agree that F91 is better than both of those.
Yes.
Like I'm not passionate about one of those G Gundam or After Gundam X being better than the other. Like I'm fine with going with whatever your order was.
Okay. Then G Gundam, it's the one with the Gundam horse. I don't know. What are we talking about here? It's got Fun Psyche.
Yeah, I'm fine with those swapping places.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we got this mess to figure out. So this is where I would put Seed. You have
11?
Seed much higher, yeah. You have Seed much higher, and I don't want to hurt...
My Seed is at 8.
Okay.
I think on my list overall. I think.
Yes, it is.
List. Yes.
So, and then Seed for me was at 14, but we've already jumped it in the queue.
Yeah, I mean, because like thinking about Victor Gundam, I want to say like I didn't really move anything on my existing list at all. I just plugged in stuff from my old list, so I did not revise placements in my existing list. So I'm absolutely willing to put Victory Gundam higher because looking at it, I also feel like it's too low, and I just didn't move it at all on my list. So I'm like. I think actually, if I were to revise my list right now, I think I would put Victory Gundam higher than 08th MS Team and Unicorn, but not above Seed personally. But I would be fine with Seed being below it on our combined list. If we want to do the Victory Gundam thing and shoot that motherfucker up, I'm down for that.
Let's think about that. I'm gonna just to help us here.
Yeah.
I'm also gonna put in the top 6. Which are the same top 6. They're just in a slightly different order for the two of us. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't have to worry about the top 2.
Yes.
Because our top 2 are the same. So beyond, let's because I actually think this is more resolvable.
Yes.
The
yeah.
3
that's
through
just,
6.
Yeah, moving those around a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gundam 00 we both had at 4. So in one form or another, I kind of feel like it should be at 4 for the moment.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
But then, I mean, there is the problem. We had different number 3s. So, Char's Counterattack, you had above War in the Pocket.
Yes.
I had War in the Pocket all the way up at number 3. You had Zeta Gundam at number 3. How do we want to square this circle? What discussion needs to be had here?
Like, I mean, I am fine with War in the Pocket being above Char's Counterattack. I am not fine with War in the Pocket being above Zeta. I think that would be... And I think I'm actually fine with 00 Gundam being above Zeta, though. If we want 00 to be 3, Zeta to be 4, 5 to be War in the Pocket, and 6 to be Char's Counterattack, I could live with that order. I don't know how you feel about that, though.
That is a grand bargain. This is like... We are like in the Senate doing what Joe Manchin will never achieve. Making a grand bargain. I'm okay with this. So, together... As a podcast, we push 00 up to 3, you're saying?
Yeah, because I know there's something about your argument for 00 kind of... I still personally, I think, like Zeta more, but, I mean, you're absolutely right that Zeta, like, specifically the Rosamia storyline is a complete dead end. It is entirely there to fill space. And 00, while I, like... hold Zeta Gundam's like virtues in such tremendously high regard that's put it above 00 for me ultimately. I think 00 is a much tighter production in most ways than Zeta. I'm fine with that being the reason it's number 3.
So in this compromise, I get War in the Pocket above Char's Counterattack, but you get Zeta Gundam above War in the Pocket, and then we put 00 at 3. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that ordering, yeah.
I think that is a good reflection of if you somehow melded us together, that is what this would look like, I think.
Yeah.
Somehow. All right. We'll revisit in a second, but I'm okay with that for now. So now this leaves the spots between 7 and 11. And we have to rank 8th MS Team, Unicorn, Double Zeta, Victory, and Seed. Let's do the easy thing first. What is the weakest of those overall as a group that we could agree on? And because I wasn't that firm on where I wanted to put it anyway, I'm kind of okay putting Unicorn at number 11.
I think I'm good with Unicorn going down.
I would definitely argue for 8th MS Team being above it. Well, I would argue for all those being above it, actually. Double Zeta, Victory. I had it higher, but you know what? I think it should be 11.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah, like, I had Unicorn above 08th MS Team, but I don't think that, like, I don't feel strongly about that. I think they're kind of similar qualities overall to me, really.
Okay. So now we're in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
We have Seed, 8th MS Team, and Victory. Given the passion with which we talked about things, I think maybe 8th MS Team needs to be 10.
That's where it is on my list. So,
okay.
Yeah,
we can do that.
Yeah, because I do think, like, I think the thing with 08th MS Team is I think it's, like, an impeccably made show. I do have qualms with, like, some of the stuff in the second half and some of the Romeo and Juliet stuff. But, like, I think what puts it a little bit lower is I do think, like, the bigger narrative and thematic ideas behind 08th MS Team are fairly light. It's much more of, like, it's a good action Vietnam story, and it has some good stuff there, but it doesn't have, like... When I think of Victory Gundam Seed and Double Zeta, like, to me, those shows have just such powerful, strong ideas that motivate them.
I disagree on Seed, but I don't disagree to the degree that this would offend me. And I totally see where you're coming from on it. So I think this is another grand compromise that works totally fine, and I am passionate about it being better than Unicorn. So I think we're good there. Unicorn is like this weird thing that's become a Trojan horse where I wind up... This happened both years where I had it weirdly high and then I sacrificed it at the altar. And I'm okay with that. Maybe I did it on purpose. Maybe I'm a wily bastard. All right. Now we got Double Zeta, Seed, and Victory. Do we agree Double Zeta is the top of those?
Yes. Yeah.
We both had it higher.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we keep Seed at number 8, you have given no ground on Seed.
I'm fine with Victory going above Seed. That was part of my... I said that I'm fine with Victory shooting up higher than it was on my list.
You did say that.
Yeah, because the thing that we have done is we have put Victory like 2 or 3 slots higher than it is on either of our individual lists, and I think that's fucking rad. So
that is rad. And as I said, and maybe that's just for me an accelerated process, but this actually feels right to me because of how much that show has grown in my estimation and memory, and just like the way I go about thinking about the world through art. Victory has become a part of that language for me. So, looking at it, I actually really like this a lot. Seed was definitely your pet project this year, the way last year I think like F91 and G Gundam was, and I gave up on G Gundam last year. I had to get F91 higher, I think. But so let's look at this for now, Sean, and see if we like it. So the bottom, 21 G Saviour, 20 IGLOO 1, and 19 SEED Destiny. Very easy because they were the same for both of us. 18 being Zeta, a new translation, 17 being Gundam Wing, and 16 being 0083. I'm cool with that because that was my list.
Yes, I think that's a totally good order for things that are fine.
All right. I like that. We should do a box set of these 3 Gundam things. They are Gundam things that are fine.
Yeah.
15 MS IGLOO 2, because it was the same on either one. 14, 13, the only swap here was that I had G Gundam higher, you had Gundam X higher, but I won and G Gundam is higher because fucking Shining Finger, goddammit.
Yeah, Shining Finger, the Master Asia death scene. I mean, yeah. I think, for me, G Gundam After War Gundam X are of pretty similar qualities. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
F91 at 12, which, in my heart of hearts, maybe I'm a weirdo and I put it even higher. But I think for this combined list, it being this high is a goddamn victory, and we are weirdos for liking it this much, but we are also right.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Jonathan, I had it at 12 and you had it at 11. Like, we both had it fair. About here on our individual list, so I think we're
in agreement.
Yeah, it's where it should be.
Number 11 is Unicorn, and it seems like both of us would have it higher on our individual lists, but neither of us would fight for it the way we would some of the other shows, which means in our combined list, this is a good place for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to characterize it. I think it's undeniably a really, really good show. But I think it's at least for me personally, it's one I have a harder time being super passionate about. Like, in a weird way, I think it's better than F91, but I'm kind of more passionate about F91. But that equation doesn't equate to it being higher than Unicorn, at least for me right now. But that's kind of how it works in my head, I guess.
Yeah, hey, maybe we have to revisit that question at some point. Who knows?
Sure.
And I also think it might be worth at some point when we get there in the chronology, breaking off narrative, doing an actual episode about it, and then ranking it separately. But we can revisit that when we get there. Number 10 is 8th MS Team, which was about where you had it, right? Yeah, it was exactly where you had it. It moved down a little bit for me, but that was our grand bargain, and it worked. Number 9 is Seed. And then number 8 is Victory. And then number 7 is Double Zeta. 6 is Char's Counterattack, which I think actually flopped from last year, yeah. I have come around more to Char's Counterattack because I've seen it more times, the way you have. And then number 5, War in the Pocket. Number 4, Zeta. Number 3, Gundam 00. And then our top 2 are inarguable Turn A and then Gundam 79. Are we cool with that?
I think that this is a good list. Yeah, like I think, I'm gonna maybe push Char's counterattack. Eventually, I'm gonna watch Char's counterattack again. I'm gonna think it's better, and it's gonna go higher on my list. So eventually, I think Char's counterattack will end up higher because we'll both have watched it more than we have right now. But where it is right now, I think is good.
Yeah, that's where I had it.
It's about where I had it. I had it, I think, at 5.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything else you feel like is still kind of nagging at you or you want to fight for?
No, I think this is a good list. Like I said, like when I made my list, I didn't really futz around with the existing order because that would have like been a lot of thinking about stuff. So I think it is interesting that like Victory Gundam has like sort of shot up in a way that like I just hadn't given thought to Victory Gundam when I made my list. And then you like said, "Oh, I put Victory Gundam higher than it was." I'm like, I should have probably put Victory Gundam higher. I have just didn't afford it any brain power, and Victory Gundam is really fucking good. So,
well, this is what's fun about doing this together is that it's kind of like a weird algebra equation where things turn out differently than they were on the other side of the equals sign. So, like our weird chemistry where 00 winds up higher than it was on either of our lists, but we look at it and it's like that actually seems pretty good. Yeah, I'm okay with that, and maybe I'll rethink Zeta and we can talk about that. But like, we should say if it's in the top 5, we are disagreeing by matters of partial degrees, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I like for me Zeta is partially like I've watched that show 3 times now, and I watched those 3 movies. So like I think that's where because I do really believe that Zeta is a better show than 00, but I think the arguments for 00 are also extremely strong. I also had 00 at my number 4, so like it's
And I would have been okay with flipping these and having Zeta at 3 and 00 at 4.
But I feel like you compromised on a lot of other stuff also, so I want to give your 00 a little bit higher. So I think it's good. It's good where it is.
Hey, this is pretty cool, and I think that also is good for our year 2 rankings, given that 00 ate up a lot of this year, and I wouldn't have it any other way because it was such a fun thing to dive into.
Yeah, and I mean, it speaks to the quality of 00, that it is able to, like, very handily break into what, to me, is, like, the Gundam canon or whatever, in the more traditional use universe canon, that it's, like, it's up there with the best of the original Tomino stuff, in Turn A Gundam. It's, like, at that same level of quality, generally, as that absolute top-tier Gundam.
Yeah, I mean, the only things in the top 7 that aren't Tomino are War in the Pocket and 00.
Yeah, and I think it like speaks to the quality of them that they deserve to be in
the top 8. Yeah, Tomino stuff is high. All right, so do you want to let's count these down together, Sean? The worst Gundam show, number 21, G Saviour. Fuck that shit.
The not quite as bad as that one Gundam show, number 20, MS IGLOO 1. It's bad, but I'm not gonna say fuck it. It's like whatever.
19, Mobile Suit Gundam SEED Destiny. It is not bad for the absence of good. It is bad for the absence of logic.
Yes, but, even though it is definitely better than MS IGLOO 1, I will also say, fuck SEED Destiny. Fuck that show.
Yeah, sure. Fuck SEED Destiny.
Number 18 is Mobile Suit Gundam Zeta, A New Translation, the movie trilogy. There you go.
It's okay. Number 17, New Mobile Report Gundam Wing and Endless Waltz.
That and Endless Waltz is doing a lot of work there.
Yes, it is.
Number 16 is Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 Stardust Memory.
Number 15, MS IGLOO 2.
Number 14, After War Gundam X.
Number 13, Mobile Fighter G Gundam, The East is Burning.
Number 12, Mobile Suit Gundam F91.
Number 11, Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn and Mobile Suit Gundam Narrative, the movie sequel.
Number 10, Mobile Suit Gundam The 08th MS Team.
Number 9, Mobile Suit Gundam SEED.
Number 8, Mobile Suit Victory Gundam, The Little Boy That Could.
That could be scarred for life.
Yes.
Number 7, Mobile Suit Gundam Double Zeta.
Number 6, Mobile Suit Gundam Char's Counterattack.
Number 5, Mobile Suit Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket.
Number 4, Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam.
Number 3, Mobile Suit Gundam 00 and Awakening of the Trailblazer.
Number 2, Turn A Gundam called Turn A Gundam.
Number 1, Mobile Suit Gundam.
Motherfucker.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least we will have those top 2 to never argue about.
Yes, at least you maybe Jonathan, you end up being just a hardcore Gundam Build Fighters fanatic, but unless that happens, I don't think anything's going to break the Turn A Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam fucking duo at the top of this list.
Which is the Build Fighters one you don't really like? Is it Try?
Try, yeah. We'll readdress that one. And
Okay.
maybe it's good. Maybe I was just in a bad mood when I watched it originally, but I did not.
I'm just trying to imagine the world where, like, I get hit on the head, and then this time next year we're arguing for Build Fighters Try versus Turn A Gundam, and you're just tearing your hair out.
Yes, I would lose my mind. I would absolutely lose my mind if you're trying to argue that.
All right. Sean, should we preview the next year, roughly, of this podcast?
Yeah, because we've got, like I said, hey, I don't want to make any promises, but I'm guessing probably that the next year will be the last year of, like, the first phase or whatever, of, like, the original project of this podcast of catching up to where Gundam is. Depending on scheduling stuff, we might not quite make that in a year, but if we don't quite make it in the next year, we'll get pretty damn close, I think.
At the very least, I think we'll get to where it was when we started.
Exactly.
Build Divers is the one that was on the air when we started the project, and who knows about that? But everything else I know we can get to. So Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway is going to be first up because it is a new movie coming out in July. But then we will be doing Gundam Age. We will be doing Gundam Age in 2 parts, with the first 2 arcs on part 1 and the next 2 arcs on part 2. So just split down the middle.
Yes.
Then
and it will be very, if you're watching the show, it will be very, very obvious where those arc splits are. I don't want to say why, because it'd be kind of spoilers, but, like, you will know immediately when it's like, okay, this is how much of the podcast they're going to do, because it'll be the first 2 arcs, and we'll
announce the episodes ahead of time. Then we will have Build Fighters, and we are doing these as Build Fighters in 1 episode, Build Fighters Try in another, and then the Build Fighters OVAs in a third, because you thought those deserved maybe their own mini cast.
Yeah, there's just enough of them. Those are the battle logs, GM's Counterattack, which is sort of a follow-up to the original Build Fighters, and then Island Wars, which is a follow-up to Build Fighters Try. So I don't think it's not going to be enough for a big episode, but it's enough of stuff that it would feel too much to tack on to an existing episode, and too much to just sort of leave on the cutting floor of the podcast entirely, especially because I really like GM's Counterattack a lot, so I want to rewatch it.
Yes. Then Reconquista in G. It's a single season show, so it'll be 1 episode.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun podcast.
I'm excited.
I'm really looking forward to watching that show again.
I will tell you, that is the one I'm most looking forward to watch, just because of the Tomino of it all, and I've heard it's weird.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Then we will have Iron-Blooded Orphans Seasons 1 and Season 2. I will finally learn why those orphans have so much iron in their blood.
Yeah, it's what the show is about. I mean, you have to wait until the last episode, because it's a huge twist. There's just like, this is why you are the Iron-Blooded Orphans. They say it in English, actually. It's very distracting.
I just can't believe, they always name the show after the mobile suit, so there's a mobile suit that's called Iron-Blooded Orphans. That's weird.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Then we will have, and actually, I'm not sure where we will wind up doing this and what form it will take, but Gundam Thunderbolt, which I love, but is utterly unfinished in anime. They've done 2 seasons of it. We can do them all at once. The manga, which I've read a lot of, is way, way beyond that, and I don't know if they're making more. They should. Thunderbolt is great. But we will definitely be doing Gundam The Origin, the OVA series, because that will be finished when we are done with Iron-Blooded Orphans. Someone asked why we haven't talked about Twilight Axis yet. That's a little OVA, and I thought maybe we do an episode somewhere pairing narrative and Twilight Axis if we want to give those their due.
Twilight Axis is just so short that it's not enough to do a whole own podcast on. But if we can find something to like stick it on to, it would be worth talking about. So
that's a maybe.
Yeah.
And then Build Divers and Build Divers Re-Rise will be 2 episodes on their own as well.
Yeah, and that will be big when we get there. That will be when I have not seen those shows at all, because we started the podcast while Build Divers was in progress. So that's going to be weird to do that. But it's like not like a one-off movie or something like G Saviour, but a proper Gundam show that I have not seen that we'll be covering together.
So between Hathaway Age, Build Fighters, G-Reco, Iron-Blooded Orphans, and The Origin, that's 10 guaranteed episodes, and probably the next 10. And then Thunderbolt, Narrative, Build Divers, Divers Re-Rise, Twilight Axis. Maybe next year, maybe not, but those are also on the floor probably after that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's coming. I am super excited. My plan, Sean, and I think you're probably okay with this, is I think I'm going to start watching Gundam Age soon.
Yes.
So that we can do that soon after Hathaway. And in July, we can maybe do a bunch of Gundam. And that'll be great, because I want to get back. I have not watched a Gundam TV show since 00, and I'm fucking jonesing.
Yes, yeah, because we've been on, because this was an interesting year for the show, because since we did that whole rounding back around to covering a bunch of the OVAs, we kind of have done mostly like an OVA and movie year, it feels like. And we've done SEED Destiny, and 00, but that is not, we did like 10 full TV shows the first year of this podcast, so.
Because we're crazy.
Because we're fucking maniacs, yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff to look forward to. I mean, I am so excited to do Gundam Build Fighters. I think is going to be such a fun podcast. It's such a fun show. And G Reco, I think, is I've just been so eager to rewatch that. And then Iron Blooded Orphans also, I think that's going to make for some really great stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, if you want to play along, start watching Gundam Age. Be ready for Hathaway when that launches on Netflix, and we will be talking about that. And we are entering one of the most exciting phases, because this is a podcast project that actually has kind of an end goal, and we are inside of it.
Yes, and that means that we basically have about 1 year, Jonathan, to figure out what are we going to do with this podcast once we have actually caught up to the Gundam, and we have no more Gundam for Weekly Suit Gundam.